It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Rene, Ritchie, Andy, Ihnatko, Lory, Gil in the house. We're going to talk about the Twitter hack and why Lory's Time War account is still down. Apple's got new emojis. The new emojis are here. The new emojis are here. And then we'll have a lot of fun speculating on what the first Apple Silicon device will be. It's going to be out this year, but what will it look like? That's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes security simple for your remote workforce. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 723, recorded Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. Boot up or shut up. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Roman. Skip the waiting room and an awkward face-to-face. Get ED medication conveniently delivered to your door in discreet, unmarked packaging. Go to getroman.com/MacBreak for a free online visit and free 2-day shipping. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we get together with the top Apple journalists, talk about the latest from Cupertino. It's good to see you, my friend Rene Ritchie. He is at youtube.com/Rene Ritchie, where he covers all tech all the time. Hi, RR.
Hi, Leo. I'm so happy. The mask laws have taken effect in Quebec, and I went grocery shopping for the first time in like a couple weeks, and everybody was wearing a mask.
Oh,
everybody
nice.
was polite and cool and calm and not entitled, not Karening, not anything, because we all just want to go back to work. And I was like, I forgive a lot of what you did as a province for the last month. I'm happy now.
Yeah, grocery shopping is an adventure. I look like Jude Law in Contagion. I wear so much protective gear. But then it's kind of fun because you feel invulnerable. You feel like Iron Man.
Well, I feel like that's it. But I was like, it's not like Batman or Iron Man. It's when they lose the first time and then have to put on the extra special costume armor and then go back. That's what I feel like. Yeah, like the extra gloves, and you do that whole scene where you put everything on.
I feel like Iron Man, but I look like Bane. That's the problem. There's Andy Ihnatko. There's Andy Ihnatko, WGBH Boston, IHNATKO.com. Hi, Andrew.
Hello. See, my problem with I do wear the mask everywhere. The only problem is that with the mask covering most of my facial features, it's hard to show to other people who aren't wearing masks how judgmental I'm being of them. Instead, usually I could just go, but now I have to like do it all through like upper body sort of stuff, and it kind of looks like I'm putting a hex on them.
Yeah, it's hard.
And actually, it's coronavirus that's hexing them. Yes,
it is hard. It's difficult.
But it's almost as if I'm expected just to be simply content that I'm protecting myself and others around me, and not judge other people, even though it really is one of my core competencies.
And we welcome back to our dais. I don't know what this is. Table. You guys are on monitors, so I don't know what the hell's going on. Lory Gil, managing editor at iMore. Hi, Lory.
I have my dais in front of me where I worship at the altar of rock and roll, so it's okay. We're good.
Yeah. Do you have a picture of Ozzy right in the middle going? So, did iMore get its Twitter account back?
Nope, not yet. By the way, if anybody wants to help us out, please at Twitter support and tell them that iMore still has not had their Twitter account reinstated. So it's very frustrating.
when we were all hacked on Wednesday, I wasn't, but when 30 blue checks were tweeting out spammy messages about "I'll double your Bitcoin if you send me some," response from Twitter, ham-handed though it might be, did, I guess, work. They shut down all blue check accounts. They said, nope, that's it. You're frozen. They quickly unfroze most of them, except for some reason for the former Mobile Nation sites, iMore, Crackberry.
Well, anybody who changed their password was extra frozen.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had our tech team. They were very forward-thinking in that they saw. As soon as they saw the Jeff Bezos tweet, they didn't even wait for more information.
Smart.
They immediately went in and they reset our password. So they did the right thing. They did what they're supposed to do. And we're
they did the wrong thing for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Because as it turns out, that was the best way to screw yourselves.
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh.
That's irony.
So we're still trapped in the black hole limbo, but we're all as a team trying to tweet out each other's articles to get word of mouth out on Twitter about what's going on. So
I will be
the best we can
glad
do.
if you just DM me whatever you want me to tweet. I'll be glad to tweet it on my account. Oh, wait a minute. No, because I made mine private. My response to the hack was to make mine private. By the way, none of that turns out would matter because what really happened was this bad guy whose name is Kirk.
Yes.
And the only explanation I come up with is maybe he wants to say, I'm the captain now. But for some reason, this guy named Kirk, who had not been seen much before, was able to get the administrative console, the high-level administrative console that presumably a trusted Twitter employee only would have access to. The New York Times said it was because, I hope this isn't true.
Say it, Leo. No, it is true. Say it. Say it.
They pinned the credentials for the admin console in their Slack channel.
And there it is.
A Slack channel that was open that public could have access to, right?
No.
No, he hacked into it.
Oh, that's what he hacked into the Twitter.
But Slack is easier to hack.
Of a Post-it note.
Yeah.
Right? It's like putting a Post-it note on your desk. It's like that's the digital equivalent of that.
It's like putting a Post-it note like in the bathroom that maybe the general public isn't supposed to get into, but people can get into.
That's the executive bathroom. That's safe. It was really a shocking, I think, dereliction of duty on Twitter's part. But now I'm even more upset because your people did the right thing.
I know. That's so frustrating.
Of course, now, I was slowed on the draw. Your people were too quick on the draw. You tweeted it, and then that was the last tweet.
Yeah, that was the last tweet we did.
I was slower on the draw. We didn't find out about it. We were doing This Week in Google, and it was already an hour into the hack, and people are saying Elon Musk is tweeting, Jeff Bezos is tweeting, Bill Gates is tweeting, Barack Obama is tweeting. And as soon as I saw Joe Biden's name on the list, I said, all right, this is an inside job because there's no way, you could say maybe Elon didn't have the best OPSEC, but there's no way a candidate for president or even the most followed
former president.
Former president, who's the most followed guy on Twitter, doesn't have at least a security key.
And wouldn't you think, like after Trump's account was deleted and after Jack's account was taken over, that they would take all the top accounts and give them elevated security, not just like one or two?
Well, I think they did do that with the president's account because notice that the president wasn't in on
and
this
Jack's apparently
scam.
The second time. There was like a handful of accounts that had enhanced security or something.
But not Barack Obama's, Elon Musk's, Bill Gates, and Joe Biden?
Well, it's a very, very hands-on approach for those accounts. It's not, they haven't written, my understanding is that they haven't written infrastructure for that sort of thing yet. It really is a case of
it's done by hand.
They're people, exactly. So they can't, it's a solution, but it's not a scalable solution.
Well, Twitter is inherently not scalable. When Justin Bieber became very hot on Twitter, they gave him his own server. And you know what? I understand because if you think about what Twitter does, it's insanely complex. Justin Bieber puts up a tweet, and then Twitter has to figure out who to show that tweet to, because it has to be his followers, right? And and that means it's not a simple database query. It's a very complicated.
It's an advanced analytical query.
Yeah. So I understand, but still.
I think it's a classic problem that affects pretty much all industries, where you build a tool as a group of 6 to 8 people, and you have an idea of what this tool is going to do, what it's going to be used for. You build it, and then you scale it based on those things, and then it gets insanely popular. And now the community is telling you what that thing is supposed to be used for, and you absolutely don't have either the what you built should have been built with that built in right in, but you didn't. And now you have to try to retroactively figure out how to make that support that, in addition to making sure that your whole organization's philosophy embraces this idea of, oh, we're not just a fun way to send little short messages to people via your text messaging system. We are now an international infrastructure for communications and emergency alerts and news. This is why I think a lot of these, this is why a lot of these services have a problem differentiating. Okay, I know that you say that you want to be, you're based on free speech and you don't want to control what anybody says on your platform. And that's great. I mean, that's great. Love to hear it. But now that you are a platform of 2.8 billion users, letting anybody say everything without any restrictions or controls or retribution, not working for our planet. Maybe you should try it on another planet, but for us, speaking as a spokesperson for Earth, not working for us. We'd really like you to address that.
The best moment was when they turned off all the verified accounts, the blue checks.
Oh, man.
And Wired says, Twitter's at its best when verified accounts can't tweet.
Well, they were having parties, right? They're like, woohoo, the blue checks are gone.
The real people are
freedom. Yeah.
But I was shocked to see that all of these iMore and Crackberry, these former Mobile Nations accounts, I guess you have the same IT guy. And I guess they all did the same. He did the same thing to all those accounts.
For all of them, yeah.
And Twitter which was the right thing to do until you realized it couldn't possibly be just a password hack. This is worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Rich Siegel was retweeting that Todd Vaziri from, I hope I'm saying his last name right, from ILM did the same thing, and he hasn't been able to get back on.
So anybody who changed their password at the proximate time of this is presumed to have been hacked. And now, obviously, they're going to get through all of these accounts, but it must be a million.
Well, the thing that's super complicated is that, like we were discovering more all the time, but and just to get through the gist really quickly, this guy named Kirk approached a couple of people who do SIM swapping and said, hey, do you want to find these OG Twitter, like 1 character, 2 character names, and we can make some money and sell them? And they're like, cool. But then they got bored. And while they got bored, he started doing this Bitcoin thing. And then it turns out while this Bitcoin thing was happening, he also downloaded messages from 8 accounts that Twitter says were not verified accounts, but we don't know what accounts. So it's like layers within. Like, was he really, did he really waste the hack of a lifetime on a stupid Bitcoin scheme? Or was a Bitcoin scheme like, pay attention over here while I get this data that I really want over? It's super complicated, and I think they're still sorting through it.
It's not as stupid a Bitcoin scheme as it seems on first glance. It would be, he got probably $100,000. It's hard to tell with Bitcoin wallets because you could put money in, they can't tell who's doing it. But I think it was Coinbase said they blocked $280,000 worth of attempted transfers. So it could have been lucrative, but it is an interesting exercise to think, you have the hack of the century. You have the keys to the Twitter kingdom. What would you like to do today?
Well, but that's where all the really cool speculation goes on. That it is possible that if the Metropolitan Museum of Art cleaned out all of its trash, and one early night at 2 a.m. I find a multi-million-dollar piece of artwork just in their trash, and I impulsively think, ooh, this is clearly a mistake, but I think I'll have it. Now I've got something that I could, a painting that's worth millions and millions of dollars, but I absolutely do not have the infrastructure on how to make millions of dollars off this painting. And so if I find some guy who will just simply give me $50,000 in cash for it, I might take it. And so this is what a lot of the thinking was over the weekend was either this. I think most of the stuff that was most interesting was at one of two either sides of the spectrum. That one, somebody happened into this really, really valuable hack, didn't have the ability to take the offer to the highest bidder on the black market, or this was a front operation to distract Twitter security while they were running the actual operation that is going to go undetected. And hopefully it seems as though it's the first one and not the second one. But
kind of depends
is Twitter.
If Kirk's real name is Vladimir, it might be the latter.
Someone was saying, I forget who, it's too hard to steal the painting these days. It's just too easy to track that down. So you rewire the payment from the auction house instead, and you get the value of the painting without ever having to actually go there and steal it and auction it and all those things. Yeah. And who knows what information is in the DMs of those accounts that got downloaded.
Yeah.
Someone's asking,
why does this keep me? I keep thinking of the movie Hackers. All of this is just straight out of Hackers. Somebody who happens across some bit of information. They didn't realize how big of a deal it was. They play around with it, and oh no, it's much bigger than they thought.
I was thinking of a better movie, Sneakers.
Yeah, I was thinking of Sneakers too. So good. C-Tech Astronomy.
I don't think I've seen either one of them.
My password.
Oh, you have to see Sneakers.
I've intentionally avoided both because I know they will get me angry. right?
Oh yeah, they're so bad.
No. Sneakers is actually very 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 good.
Sneakers
Even if
where Robert Redford is a hacker?
Yes.
No.
Or he.
I'm
he's
sorry.
Yes, no. Sneakers is the one where the launching off point is that they're as a hippie at Harvard, like in the '60s, he and his college friend Ben Kingsley are hacking into like Republican fundraising accounts and giving it to like good charities.
I don't know if Redford does the hacking, right? He's like the suit. He's like the pretty face.
The boss.
Yeah.
Well,
and he happened to be going out to get a pizza for them when the feds actually came in and arrested
Everybody
Ben
knows
Kingsley.
hackers wear hoodies, so it couldn't be.
Yeah.
Even when they're
And they
sort of
roller
like,
skate.
I'm in.
Yeah, they roller skate. And they have weird
hackers-
personal habits. That's why I don't want to watch these movies.
Yeah,
And really, the things I hate the worst. What is that? The thing that in the movie and TV industry, the person in charge of the screen is called the playback guy, right? It's the person. And there's a lot of times these guys are sophisticated. We've occasionally been contacted. Can we use TWiT as one of the tabs? I think the Mr. Robot people want to know if one of the tabs could be TWiT, that kind of thing. So they're somewhat sophisticated, but most of the time it's really big text and really stupid hacks.
Yeah.
And there's no, it gripes me a little bit. So
I remember.
And the sound of a computer typing is always something like.
yeah, exactly.
Hackers was a lot of fun because as it happened, like I saw it in a screening room with like Chicago film critics. And so all the critics were like there, just like again watching.
Did they
like,
come over to you and say, Andy,
notes.
is that true? Can they do that? Is that possible?
No, but here's so I was there with Roger Ebert, and Roger and I went out to lunch afterward, and I'm like over the entire screen, I'm like. Because there are lines like, "Oh, I see you have the new upgraded model 5121 laptop.
Yeah.
Yes, it has more RAM, which makes it faster." and so we're talking about it over lunch, and I not really realizing the effect that like what I'm saying is having. I said, "Oh, come on, okay. First of all, if you want to like control traffic lights, you don't go to the magical center. Here's how you can actually control a traffic light. You just mount a strobe light, blah blah blah, trick the light to thinking that you're an ambulance, and also you really want to. You don't want to do." I told them like what a DDoS was like. I told them that social engineering would do that. I could probably get access to this by doing that. And I see him getting quieter and quieter as I'm as I seem to be saying that no, I could ruin you, your newspaper, and your entire city with just 10 bored minutes and an unregistered cell phone.
I love the poster for hackers. This will give you this 1995. Their crime. By the way, that's Angelina Jolie as a hacker.
Tattoo. Angelina Jolie.
Their crime is their curiosity. Hackers. But the best is the tagline: boot up or shut up.
Do you want to play a game?
Hack
Boot
the
up
world. Hack
or
the world.
shut up.
Yeah.
So I've avoided those movies, but now I think there's enough time and distance that could make it be funny instead of just annoying.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can just laugh at it.
Sneakers,
Yeah.
We'll have
That movie in Space Camp would make a good double feature in terms of having no technical understanding of exactly what they're talking about.
But I was watching like a bunch of ship-faring YouTubers take apart the new Tom Hanks movie. You cannot watch a movie about anything in which you are an expert.
I know.
It doesn't work.
I know.
No, definitely.
But I have to say, Greyhound is a great movie. Are they saying it's not realistic?
Haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, they're saying like the radius of the turn here and blah blah. And I'm like, but, I had a friend who was a race car driver, and he's like, those Fast and the Furious movies are just completely inaccurate. I can't watch them. So
I can acknowledge that when Tom Hanks says hard a port, that the ship doesn't go. But I can understand that. It was more the ballistics of an airplane than an actual Navy destroyer in 1941. But I thought it was a gripping movie. Loved the movie.
That's the point, right? Like anyone who's in an airplane can't watch flight movies. They're like, oh, Liam Neeson wouldn't bounce around the cockpit that way.
Whenever I see those podcasting movies, I just have to laugh.
Yeah.
That's not possible.
Well, it's like how TV shows
movies
go. Like, I got my podcasting deal. I'm a millionaire. I'm going to retire now. Like, really? What? It's like, or like all the books, like the shows about books. Like, I sold my first book. I'm a millionaire.
Are there any tech blogger movies yet? I think there should be.
Nope.
Because we know there won't be any podcaster movies until there's a tech blogger movie.
Well,
Right.
God
That comes
called me.
first. Yeah.
TV show. It's about a podcaster, and he's like trying to get his podcast sold entire for a season. I was watching it at my mom's place, going, "Oh no, it doesn't work like this at all."
He's trying to get his podcast sold.
He keeps meeting with massive media companies to buy his podcast.
Of
so
course.
That he can be, like, rich and famous.
What show is that?
God friended me. God becomes a Facebook friend. It's like the new version of Joan of Arcadia, which is a new version of. It's like God becomes his Facebook friend and sends him out to right wrongs in the world.
I now know why I've never heard of it.
And he's an atheist. His father's a preacher, and they disagree with each other. And he vents about.
Is
his
it Canada
father.
only?
I don't think
it's Canadian content.
We can't afford that many TV shows.
Somebody said Christian Bale should play me in the TWiT biopic. I'll scream
Only
at the
if
road.
he can dress as Batman.
Yes. Okay, let's get to our first big Apple story of the week.
So it's almost 3:00. Why not?
The new emojis coming to iOS in 2020. Finally, what you've been waiting for, the lung emoji is actually that might be timely. That goes right well.
That dude's wearing a mask at least.
Yeah, there's a ninja. There's boba tea. You know, I thought those were tapioca pearls.
So I'm completely getting this wrong.
No, they're cornstarch balls.
So I thought that was Starbucks s'mores frappuccino, and this was a COVID-19 preparedness emoji. Am I completely getting these wrong?
There's a dodo, which is also, I think, appropriate. That's your climate change emoji. A babushka doll, a piñata, a decent tamale. I have to say the Google version of this tamale emoji is disgusting. I don't know what's in it.
Mexican food and no poutine, though. I mean, this really seems like it's not fair to North America.
Should be annoyed. And I don't think that's a Canadian hand gesture.
No, that's an Italian gesture, I'm really certain.
They call it pinched fingers. A little tip of the hat to
uses
Australia.
That gesture. I thought that was a weird pick.
Oh, they do, Lory, just not in polite company.
Do they?
Go to the North End.
It could be like, it's delicious.
I saw Tony Soprano use it once, and good things did not happen to the person he gave it to.
See, I feel like, and maybe it's just me, and we were talking about this on TWiT, I feel like that's dirty, doing that.
There's a polite version, but I think if you open your hands in the wrong way, then
so I don't even know.
and then my speculation was all Italian hand gestures have something to do with your wife is sleeping around on you. I think all of them mean that you've been cuckolded. I just think that's.
I will say that my grandfather was an Italian immigrant and a proud member of the Sons of Italy, and I did occasionally see that in big like family gatherings, neighborhood gatherings at the grown-ups table. And when if someone was if they saw people doing that, then the children were hushed away to another space because
the Italian viewers are getting so angry at us right now. They're writing in going, Leo, don't you know that this is really a gesture from the hills of Napoli that means in fervent love of your soul and peace and happiness? How dare you? Does.
Here is the text from Emojipedia, which is the authority, Jeremy Bruges' site. And, of course, he's on the Unicode committee for emoji, so he does know.
Okay.
It says, pinched fingers is a variety of... In Italy, this hand gesture tends to be used in disagreement, frustration, or disbelief and can mean, what do you want? What are you seeing? Or your wife is sleeping around on you. Outside Italy, anyone performing a caricature of an Italian person, regardless of context or tone, might use this gesture. Well, that's good. So, in other words, it's a stereotype. Okay, good. Pinched fingers has a variety of other culturally specific uses. In Israeli culture, it can mean hold on, relax, be patient. The K-pop star Yuri uses it as a signature gesture to represent a dumpling. And it's a general warm sentiment. It can also be used, well, we won't go on. So, I missed that usage.
Never underestimate the power of K-pop.
So I'm going to choose it means dumpling.
That might be why that's on the list. If a K-pop star
they're powerful.
makes this, that's a powerful.
That's what it means.
People
this is to benefit the stands out there. Then there's a boomerang. Nice tip of the hat to Aussies. A ninja, which I don't think is something the Japanese particularly were asking for. I'm thinking that's a comic book thing.
Not even historically accurate ninja. That's a very
That's American nerds.
Like if you're supposed to be hiding and you dress like that, everyone's going to know you're the ninja.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still COVID. Like only ninjas dress that way.
No, ninjas should wear flannel shirts, should look normal.
They blend in, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a quarter, which is interesting. That's a very American-looking coin. In Apple's,
Why does that particular version say the crazy one?
Because it's Apple.
Because Apple.
Here's to the crazy ones. If you were to flip it over,
is this Apple's?
Yes, these are Apple's.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
These are Apple's. Well, I could show you Google's, but they're so horrible. Google, it's like they have
Twitter's aren't great either.
It's like a child doing the illustrations. There's a very anatomically correct heart.
Yeah, that's a very curious Valentine message to send to somebody over text.
I'll rip your heart out with my pinched fingers, dumpling. There's a beaver. We know what that's going to be used for. What the hell? This is like every gender. Is this a transgender symbol?
Firewire.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
or
what
Fire
a lot of people
or
would say.
Firewire 3. Either one. Yeah. That's the Thunderbolt 4 logo. There's Boba
It's
Tea.
retaliation for J.K. Rowling. Good for them.
So this is transgender, basically.
Yes.
Male, female, and then the transgender.
Yes.
That's cool.
Or all.
like
I think
that.
it's meant to be inclusive.
It's basically all.
Yeah.
All genders. And then there's lungs. Again, anatomically correct. Although I believe that trachea should be a little bit shorter, but I don't know. I'm just guessing. There you go. Those are the new emojis. The anatomical heart and lungs coming to the emoji keyboard later this year. There is a lot of discussion over the pinched fingers. Babushka, I like that. That's nice. The nesting dolls, those are pretty.
Is that a Matryoshka call? Yeah,
Matryoshka,
yeah,
not
does anything
babushka.
They should actually, if they're going to, they should do it all the way. They should make sure there are smaller versions of it, so you can actually do the full.
Like you
nesting
hold
one.
down, and they pop up the smaller version.
Well, I think Apple's done something clever. Instead of just showing the outer layer, they actually have the bottom of the outer layer and then the next layer in peeping out. So you do get the idea it's nested.
I wonder
So
if they
it's the
drafted
emoji
the
for
vice
middle
versa.
sister.
Little sister. Oh, it could be.
Middle sister. Yeah.
Middle sister. There's actually meat filling in the tamale, which is, again, better than Google's.
It's not vegan.
Yeah. When you blow these up, they're really quite detailed, I think.
Where is my
Yeah.
poutine emoji? I've been asking for
Because,
years.
you know, what would it look like? People would not know it's poutine. They'd think, what is that, vomit?
I don't know how many people recognize a tamale, though. I mean, in China, they probably think it's one of those,
that's
one of
kind
the
of-
Chinese dumplings.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't really matter because the reason why they released these so many months before they actually put them out on software is so that the entire internet community can figure out what sexual thing are we going to use this as a shorthand for.
Obviously.
So it's like,
Obviously.
she sent me a burrito emoji plus this emoji plus a
Why the
match
carrot
emoji.
instead of the eggplant? What did I do? What did I do?
The carrot instead of the eggplant. So this is, let's find the Google version of the, this is Apple's. Oh, wow. That's a burrito. No, I don't want burrito. I want tamale. Wow. They're really, you know what? That's interesting.
That burrito doesn't have French fries in because it's not from Sacramento.
Yeah, forget it. It's not a California burrito. Don't eat it.
It's interesting. Tamale was approved as part of, boy, they haven't finished this entry apparently. There's just an ellipsis. It's 01F84. Okay. Here you can copy and paste 01F84 from this page. Why? There's a lot of Mexican food. That's interesting.
Well, it's great cuisine, but I mean, they spread
It's
the
the
love.
best
Who
food.
doesn't love it? There is stuffed flatbed bread and falafel.
Falafel.
There's originally there was a lot of Japanese food. So,
Yes.
the rice cracker, rice ball, cooked rice, curry rice, steaming. There's like 3 rices right there. Steaming bowl, spaghetti, roasted sweet potato, oden, which is, again, that like the tamale, I think oden is probably something mostly Japanese or maybe just Asian users would know. Fish cake with swirl, moon cake, dango, dumpling. So yeah, it's good. It's good we finally
No mochi though. I was hoping for mochi.
mochi. Yeah.
Did you submit a request for a new emoji? Because you can do that. You can submit it to the
know.
Unicode Consortium.
I know, and it's
Consortium.
what's interesting, and Jeremy Bruce, who's been on our shows many times, has told me that, sometimes, like I think Tanya, our former booker, Tanya Hall, I think was the milkshake emoji, wasn't she, John? I think she submitted it. I think Jeremy said, this is Tanya's emoji.
That's amazing.
so great.
Isn't that a nice feeling to know you've got, an emoji named after you?
The Italian
Tanya's
pinch hand comes from a small gentleman, tiny suburb of Brooklyn. So these will come out with iOS 14.1 probably in October.
Oh, not with 14. They're not in the beta.
See, they're super smart because they release a new update and they know like some percentage of people will do it just because it's new. But then a month later, when the numbers, it's not everybody hasn't updated yet. They put out the new version, and then some people get it, and you start seeing those squares on Twitter because you're not hip enough to have the latest. And then like the real upgrade stats happen because people got to have their emoji.
That's why I didn't get a tamale emoji. I'm not hip enough. No. I just got 01F4DU instead of the real deal.
Does anybody know what fondue is anymore? That seems like such a 70s thing.
Oh, there's restaurants.
Whenever you say that, I hear the ABBA music my parents played while having fondue.
Haven't you been to the melting pot? Don't you know?
That's true. You're right.
Don't you know about the melting pot? The original fondue. Lisa and I used to go there. And we got in a fight every time we went there. And I finally realized it's because they used so much MSG in the fondue that I was getting cranky. And we had to stop going there. So just a little tip. If you find yourself fighting with your SO after going to the melting pot, it could also be that, you have to share a pot of melted cheese. That could make you cranky too.
Not COVID safe.
Definitely not for a long time will we be going back there.
Also, really not very lower GI safe either.
Yeah, I think you're right. By the way, according to Forrester, speaking of COVID, Apple was the only Fortune 50 company to insure itself against COVID. Here's the little paragraph from the Forrester report. COVID-19 wasn't a black swan. Any infectious disease expert could have told you a pandemic was inevitable. Yet, when we reviewed the Fortune 50's current 10K reports, we saw that while 50% mentioned a pandemic in their risk profile for investors, they classified it as an act of God. Only Apple had insured the downside.
That's so incredible that that's the only company that sort of predicted this and that saw this. Lots of companies work with China suppliers, and it seems like they would have just kind of foreseen even some version of a slowdown because of it.
That's why Tim Cook gets the bucks.
Yep.
Well, they did have what was it? The bird flu was 2009. I think there was another.
Oh, there's been plenty of warning.
Big vector in 2016. Yeah. It's telling that. So basically, all this evidence was out there. Thank you. Was out there for everybody. Yeah, but it is kind of amazing that. Yeah, you know what? Given that our fortunes are absolutely crystal clear tied to China or tied to the East, we are going to make sure that we can't get bit in the butt too badly by that. It's amazing that would happen.
By the way, Beatmaster, who is our Swiss representative in the chat room, says that they still do fondue in Switzerland.
There you go.
Well, if they have
they got better cheese there.
But they do it with the cheese because if you do it with oil, which you can put the boiling oil and put beef in it, which is really cruel. But according to Beatmaster, that's fondue chinoise in Switzerland. So
can I say that I could have predicted that because one of the greatest roadblocks, my favorite roadblocks in Amazing Race history was in Switzerland, where they had to eat and the team had to eat an entire pot of fondue, and of course because they do such good editing, most of the editing is just these contestants after like, okay, great, we just get to this roadblock and then we get to the finish line and like, hey, and after like 2 minutes they're all like. Just eating a gallon of
that explains because Beatmaster says mostly it's tourists eating the fondue in Switzerland. Yeah. They've learned not to stay away from the fondue if you want to walk again. Okay, don't diss the fondue. Beatmaster says I'm not dissing the fondue.
The international audience is going to be so angry.
I love fondue.
Oh, I love it too.
I just didn't think it was common enough to get an emoji, but apparently it is.
When we discovered the melting pot, Maybe that's another reason we were cranky. We ate there a lot, like every week.
I am going to put in a proposal, because if we can have something as regionalized as a fondue part, aerosol cheese needs to be an emoji, because that's nothing more American than let's take something that's beloved and ancient and let's turn it into like this oil orange filled monstrosity and make it under compressed air that you can pull whippets off of while you're having your Ritz crackers. Can
you make it on a cracker? So, Andy, submit this to the Unicode Consortium, because a cracker
has to fit on a cracker.
Spray cheese on it would be perfect.
Oh,
I would love that emoji. It has to look like it has a little curly Q and a tail, right, coming up, like a little pointy tail where you left off. And then I would love that. I would use that all the time.
I favor smiley face, and occasionally I will put that on an Oreo cookie.
The smiley face from Watchmen, right? Not the proper one.
With a dot of ketchup.
Suddenly have a really strong hankering for some spray cheese right now.
I'm just saying that, when I invite you over for like my Tony Awards night, telecast night party, it's a scene, man.
I'll bring the fondue.
I have both the white and the orange version of the spray cheese.
Oh, man, you got it.
Nice.
So if you search...
Yes.
If you do an image search for spray cheese on a cracker, there's that one is the one I want. There was the one with a little point coming off of it.
Those all look like Pokemon to me.
Yeah,
those look like a Bulbasaur and a Charmander.
It is. It's like clouds. You just see what you want in there. That's that little
That's
point.
The point.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's how you know it's fresh.
Wow. It looks like there are multiple brands of, as Kraft calls it, easy cheese. Easy there,
different
boy.
Flavors. There's
Easy,
like bacon cheese and.
Can we get a hybrid emoji where you got some deviled ham with cheese?
Oh my God. This looks terrifying.
You call it terrifying, but if you were to open any issue of like Family Circle or Women's Day in 1971 about elegant party making, boy, you'd have deviled ham with aerosol cheese and a slice of pickle
from the Pinterest
floating in Jello
cute snacks folder.
Yep.
It looks like Mr. The Monopoly Man on a cracker, a little mustache there.
They look scared. I don't like that.
After he's been eviscerated.
Wow. Who knew that spray cheese was so virtual?
Yeah.
Do you have a preferred brand, Andrew?
At the dollar store, it's usually get what you can. It's a volume business, I find.
Kroger, the Kroger house brand is called Go Cheese.
Go Cheese.
As opposed to Cheese Go. There's Clover Valley Spray Cheese, Easy Cheese, which is pasteurized cheese by Kraft.
The holiday sampler kit.
Wait a minute. Kraft makes easy cheese, cheddar, and bacon.
Look at us on a burger. That sounds delicious.
We agree though that we all know none of this is actual food, right?
Well,
like zero molecules.
No, I had this conversation on another show, believe it or not. So there's something going on.
You've been talking about spray cheese a lot.
Not spray cheese. We're talking about Velveeta because we were talking about queso.
Oh, yeah. It was me, and we did talk about it.
Yes.
Stand by Velveeta.
Well, it turns out, and Stacy explained it to me, there is a chemical in Velveeta that makes cheese more meltable. So if you
calcium salt.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. You knew that too, huh?
No, we did this. We did this like this. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Maybe I'm confusing Stacy and Lory, but because Stacy Higginbotham on Twig is the queso queen.
I did not talk about the chemical makeup of Velveeta. All I did on a different episode, I think it was last time we did MacBreak Weekly, I just talked about how Velveeta is a good cheese for queso.
Maybe we were talking about the fact that I have a smoked queso recipe for the Traeger. Is that why?
Which I used, by the way.
Oh, was it good?
It didn't taste any different smoked.
Yeah.
It was good, but it didn't taste any different smoked than non-smoked.
The fabulous Meat Church in Waxahachie, Texas. Yeah. Apple wins.
Good website.
Apple. I'm just going to say the word Apple. Bring us back on track.
Oh, wait, what? I thought this was the cheese episode.
This is Snack Break Weekly, Leo.
Snack Break Weekly. God, I think that's what we should do. Forget this Mac stuff.
Okay, somebody at TWiT, get that domain now.
Now. Snack Break Weekly.
You're about to lose it. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Apple wins fight. This happened the day after our show last week. In Ireland, remember, the EU wanted Ireland to rescind the tax deal they made with Apple, forcing Apple to pay a $14.9 billion tax bill, which, incidentally, Ireland wouldn't even get. That goes straight through to the EU. The EU General Court has said, no, wait a minute.
And the judge was so salty. It's so funny. It's like every analyst, at least the analysts I read, everyone, like, even including like Neil Seibert and Ben Thompson, and they were all saying, like, legally this is nonsense.
It is.
Like, you can make an argument about it, but it's legally nonsense. And the judge is like, this is legally nonsense. Like, you can make a better law, but you can't retroactively go back and just take people's money.
It was pure, as Tim Cook said, political crap. In fact, it's a longstanding tradition for municipalities, for governments, to make deals with companies as incentives. To say, remember, New York City was going to do that for Amazon. Say, move your stuff here, and we'll give you tax breaks. That's very common because they want the business. Ireland wanted the business, and Apple saved a lot of money, and EU tried to give them the business, but the judge says, no. Now, they can't appeal. It's not the highest court in the EU, but the EU says we're considering.
They can say you have to do this going forward, but going back in time and saying you owe us this is hard argument to make.
Marta Vestager, who is the competition commissioner at the EU and was the one who kind of, spearheaded this, said if member states give certain multinational companies tax advantages, by the way, I think Ireland's also done this to other companies like Google.
Yes.
Not available to their rivals, this harms fair competition. She said the EU will continue to look at aggressive tax planning measures under EU state aid rules. What they should do is you can't do it retroactively. I think that's the big problem. You can't say, no, that's no good. Give us our $15 billion. But maybe they could say going forward, we need to review these rules and approve them before you do them. Mm-hmm.
Or just going forward, you have to be in accordance with these general guidelines agreed upon by the European
Well, there
Commission.
are EU guidelines, and I think that was the contention, is that this violated the rules. The Irish finance ministry said, we've always been clear there was no special treatment provided to the two Apple units. We'll give this break to anybody. Anyone wants it.
And I think it is worth a discussion, because a lot of people get upset that these companies don't pay more taxes. Like Apple, I think, is one of the world's biggest taxpayers. Amazon manages to pay almost no taxes, but people want to claim those taxes back, but they don't get upset about the tax breaks they're getting. And it's way easier just not to give them the tax. I know it's not convenient, but it's way easier not to give them the tax breaks than to always complain about the lack of double taxation in some cases.
I think that the tax break, there's a lot I don't understand and don't know about business tax, but in where I live, it also seems to hurt local businesses a little bit, because the idea of the tax break incentive is to bring a large corporation into your economy, but that can sometimes be at the negative. That's a negative to the local businesses that will lose out on something like that, like taking over in their area. So, they're telling somebody that you have to pay me taxes on something that we promised you wouldn't have to pay taxes on. That's just wrong. But there is an argument to be had for maybe we should start questioning these tax breaks that we're giving these large corporations that already have millions and billions of dollars. Why do they need a tax break?
I agree. And it is a finagle because Apple essentially assigns intellectual property rights to its technologies to a small division in Ireland in order to get a tax break. It's not even good for Apple, because that's why Apple had more than $100 billion in Ireland that they could.
There's also this Delaware building, this little building in Delaware that's the home to 100,000 U.S. corporations.
Well, including TWiT, I might add. But I just, we're an LLC, but we made it a Delaware LLC only because somewhere I read Oh, that's a good thing to do. I know it doesn't save us money. We still have to pay corporate taxes in
The
California.
part where it's hard is that some places believe that you should pay taxes based on where you're doing business. So if you sell a MacBook in Germany, the Germans should be able to tax it, where other people believe that you should pay taxes in the area where you're creating the value. So if you designed that MacBook in California, you should be paying California taxes. And a lot of companies are like, well, figure it out, please. But it's hard if both Germany and California want to tax it.
Yeah, we don't want to be double taxed. And of course, the MacBook is taxed with value-added tax. So, the state's getting its share of that revenue. Anyway, it's above my pay grade. I agree with you, Laura. I don't know anything about tax policy. I do say it feels unfair, and it feels like a finagle, a little chicanery, only available to big companies. I can't transfer my intellectual property rights to Ireland, and then have my pay zero income tax in Ireland.
Well, have you tried, Leo?
Even if I did that for individuals, the U.S. federal government says, no, come here. Come here, kid.
Well, U.S. is amazing. I think it's like
I could be living in Ireland and still want it.
About imperial measurements and taxation policies, because it's always the U.S. and one African country that says we're going to stick with the imperial system and we're going to tax you for the revenue you've already been taxed on.
Yep.
It's like the two things that are quirky about
honestly,
America.
if you think about it, tax policy is always made by the big companies that can afford to lobby and give money to members of Congress and all of that. So our U.S. tax policy absolutely favors big companies. I can't lobby sufficiently to get Dianne Feinstein to change my tax law. It's not going to happen. I don't have Dianne, I'll give you $1.50. That's about it. That's all I can do.
Give you one of those emoji quarters.
I'll give you 100 emoji quarters. I'll give you all the emoji quarters you can eat. Apple has committed to be, and I'm very pleased to report this, 100% carbon neutral. They're already carbon neutral for their buildings and so forth, but they want to do this now for the supply chain for all their products by 2030. That is,
and there are companies that do that, but they're not of Apple scale.
Right.
The thing is that it's a company of Apple scale. It's a supply chain of that scale that wants to get to carbon neutral.
We actually were working on making TWiT carbon neutral, but you don't do that by putting a wind machine on your roof. Or actually, the best place for a wind machine would be right here on the table. But what you do is you buy carbon credits. And we started doing that for at least I started doing that for our travel, and we were working on before COVID. We were working on doing that for TWiT, and you just have to figure out what your usage would be, and then you go to a company that does this, and they say, okay, well, we will offset that by either planting trees or doing other carbon sequestration projects, and this is what the bill will be. And I'm sure that's what Apple is doing. Although, you saw all the solar panels they put on the roof of the new campus. So some of it is actually direct. In fact, they say 80% of the renewable energy that Apple sources comes from Apple-created projects. So that's pretty impressive. It's not merely
reclaiming materials. Like they have that new robot that's going to take the rare earth magnets out of the Taptic engine.
Taptic engine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And they
apparently it's hard to ship those through Europe because they still want to treat it as hazardous waste. But we'll figure that out.
Yeah, his name is Dave. So they now have Liam.
Dave. Yeah.
There was one other robot.
Daisy
and Dave.
And Dave.
I'm sorry, Dave.
They're going to start a band together.
Yeah, Liam, Daisy, and Dave. I don't know where Liam came from. I guess Liam Neeson? But Daisy and Dave clearly come from 2001, right?
It had a particular set of skills.
Very particular. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So Dave disassembles the Taptic engine. Wow.
Yeah.
That's tiny, right?
Yeah.
It's got rare earth magnets and tungsten, both of which are tricky to get, and if you can recycle them, good for the environment, good for the people who are working in those mines, and they're also recovering.
Also, the supply is not that high, so like anything we can reclaim, the better.
That's right.
Until we start farming the asteroids.
Yeah. No rare earth magnets. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And a lot of them are in China, and the policies change.
They also have they have a material recovery lab in Austin, which is looking at other ways to recycle. They're partnering with Carnegie Mellon to develop further engineering solutions. All iPhone, iPad, Mac, And Apple Watch devices released in the past year, I wish they had the AirPods in here, are made with recycled content, including 100% recycled rare earth elements in the Taptic engine. That's a first for Apple and for any smartphone, according to Apple's press release. They've decreased their carbon footprint by 4.3 million metric tons in 2019 through design and recycled content. That's really good. And over the last 11 years, they've reduced average energy needed for product use by 73%. I guess that means just better battery life. It's good all around. So.
Yeah. I kind of wish they'd extend that to making sure that the life of an Apple product can go way beyond the integrity of the original product. It still really burns me that if the simplest thing happens to if a simplest component failure on a MacBook can mean that, oh well, we're going to have to replace the keyboard, the trackpad, the lower assembly, the motherboard, and the battery assembly because this is all one simple configured component. It'd be nice if once something becomes obsolete but it's still an intact notebook, it were there were like you could get past the startup security utility, the security bootloader, install your own, and basically say, guess what? You are no longer a MacBook of any kind. We're going to disable like security features so that if you want to put a third-party operating system like Linux on it, yes, that's perfectly fine. You can continue to do that. So there are a lot of it's the press release they sent out was very comprehensive. It says talking not just about hey we're buying credits, but here's all the steps that we are taking, including creating monetary incentives for other companies to become more environmentally conscious. But part of the thing that's missing is are you willing to add 2 millimeters to the thickness of a device if it means that you have more replaceable components in that product, or even better, more user replaceable components in that product? I think there's a lot of e-waste that is not going to be solved by being able to take my $2,000 MacBook, send it back for basically a $200 credit towards the purchase of another Mac, and then hope that the robots are going to be able to salvage everything out of it.
Well, so it's at both ends. You got to do it in production. You got to do it in recycling at the end. I have to say, it would be easy for Apple to skate in China, where I imagine they don't have particularly strict laws on all of this, but they're doing big investments. They have commitments from over 70 suppliers. The suppliers are mostly in China, to use 100% renewable energy for Apple production. That's 8 gigawatts in commitments to power the manufacturing of its products. That's a big reduction in CO2. They have new and completed projects in Arizona, Oregon, and Illinois, bringing Apple's renewable capacity for its corporate operations to over 1 gigawatt. 80% of the renewable energy that Apple sources from its facilities are from Apple-created products. We mentioned that. They are building a giant solar array in Scandinavia, as well as 2 new projects providing power to underserved communities in the Philippines and Thailand. I think this is Tim Cook. I don't think it's. A lot of times I look at this stuff and I say, it's just corporate BS. But I really think that he has a genuine commitment to climate change. And this is showing up here. They're spending money. They're putting their money where
and Lisa Jackson. I mean, that's a heck of a hire if you're serious about what you're doing.
They're working on a carbon-free aluminum smelting process that instead of releasing greenhouse gases, releases oxygen, which is interesting.
They were in Quebec for that. They were up here with a lot of the Quebec aluminum companies talking about that recently.
That's when they say the low carbon aluminum. That's what they're talking about, and that's in the 16-inch MacBook Pro.
I think they use hydro, and there's like places there's Iceland and Quebec and New Zealand and places that work on it.
So this is really impressive. And then they are working with Conservation International to build, mangrove groves in Kenya and Colombia, and the World Wildlife Fund. So it's when Steve was at Apple, he made sure that any charitable stuff Apple did was secret.
Yes,
either secret or non-existent.
Don't tempt your karma.
It's not clear, but I think he probably did. Knowing Steve, he probably did a lot. Especially, actually knowing his wife, they probably did a lot. Yes. But just did it personally and in secret. But I think this is really great to see a big corporation like Apple that does, in fact, contribute dramatically to the use of these kind of difficult materials to pay some attention to this.
It's weird because like they could be big evil company and do like latter stage Marlon Brando tiddly twat about the environment.
Right.
They could also, they're $1 trillion company. They could do way more. So I'm glad that they are setting this as a standard, because once you set these standards, it's kind of inconvenient to go less than the next time. So, and each of these has been more than they have been in previous years. So hoping that's like a hard trend that continues.
So if you get that 16-inch MacBook Pro, that's the first carbon-free aluminum. And I guess that's new. The existing 16 inches are not carbon-free, but
they're made from recycled aluminum, I think.
Okay, all right, and they're doing that new smelting technology that eliminates greenhouse gases. So that's very cool. It's made by Elysis, which is a joint venture of Alcoa and Rio Tinto, which is a little bit problematic. They're backed by $144 million in funding, and that's in Canada. That's with the help of the governments of Canada and Quebec. So that's great.
Thank you, Canada.
Thank you, Canada.
Topless Justin Trudeau selfies to prove it.
A lot of Apple, a lot of Foxconn movement to other nations. I've seen stories that hint or imply that Apple is trying to prepare for a post-China manufacturing. You think that's credible, or is it merely to get their phones in Brazil and India?
¿Por qué no le dos?
Could be both. Could be both.
Yeah.
Both Brazil won't let you sell a phone that's not made in Brazil. I think India has similar. They at least have high enough tariffs that there's a lot of.
Or they'll tariff you. Both of those countries will tariff you out the wazoo if you don't.
Yeah, and yet
this is good across the board for Apple because they need to be spreading out their supply chain anyway to protect against things like the way earlier this year when China had the epidemic of the COVID-19 and it was isolated there, but all the supply chain shut down for it. And so any circumstance under which one country has to have some version of a shutdown, Apple needs to protect itself against that by spreading out throughout. And I think, some of the other things that our government is putting in place could have negative effect on Apple's, being in one country alone
Trade
too.
Wars. Yeah. And that, I don't know what the status of that's going to be, but that is an issue too. And you'd be smart. Tim Cook is the supply chain guy, right? And he's probably has a lot to do with Foxconn and why Apple makes so much stuff in China.
Yeah, and now Jeff Williams, and I forget Khan, something, I'm forgetting his first name, Khan. They're all.
I always got the sense that it was Cook who really spearheaded that.
Yes, he started it. Yeah, he came over from Compaq, and that was his first thing, was like, well, if we can do this at 10%, why can't we do it at 110%?
Right. But it would be prudent at this point, despite the advantage you've got by making it.
Yeah.
It's not merely economic, by the way, and I think we've mentioned this before. The supply chain's in China, so you're closer to your supply chain. The manufacturing skills and technologies that have been built up since the iPhone was first made in China in 2007 have really put China in a perfect position to be the factory of the world.
Invested in cities to do this exact job.
Right.
They literally spent all the money to make cities that would do this for companies.
Right.
Yeah, not only that, but they've also been building shipping ports and shipping routes so they can get manufactured products to other ports much more quickly. This is what when a government makes something a national priority on the order of putting a person on the moon. This is the sort of things that happen. There are negatives to that as well, and we're also seeing a lot of follow up by that. Japan, as part of their COVID response emergency funds, they're underwriting help for Japanese companies that want to move their operations and want to move their manufacturing out of China for exactly that reason. But yeah, it'll be tough for them to do, but it's definitely overdue for them to put some of their manufacturing outside of this one country where you might find yourself in a human rights, particularly when you might find yourself in a human rights situation sometime in the next 1 to 7 years. That's going to make you not have a lot of answers for people who are saying, why are you still doing business with these people?
Interestingly,
open conflict.
Wistron, which is one of the people involved in iPhone manufacture, is a Taiwanese company, just got sold to a Chinese company, Luxshare, for $472 million. So it can go both ways.
Yeah.
I don't know if Apple had anything to do with that acquisition. Probably not. I wonder if they gulped a little bit when they saw it.
I mean, you always want to have like some sort of reciprocal threat. Like right now, people think Apple is vulnerable because China owns all the capacity to produce these phones, but Apple's a huge part of the economy, and without Apple there, it's hugely damaging. And that's one of the few things that can still affect the Chinese government. They're insulated against a lot of factors, but economic downturn takes down many a government. So the threat of losing Apple's economy is still in the Shenzhen area is still harsh. But if Apple has multiple venues to assemble as well, then that's just one more sort of quiver, one more arrow in their quiver when they're talking about trade with China.
I should point out that Wistron is owned by a Taiwanese company, but actually manufactures in Kunshan, which is next to Shanghai. It's in mainland China. So maybe that doesn't change very much in terms of where the phone is manufactured, just who owns those. Actually, isn't Foxconn a Taiwanese company? I think it is.
And Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing.
And TSMC is, yeah. So anyway, I would also be nervous. This is a geopolitical discussion, which we're not qualified to enter, but it never stopped us.
Nope.
I would also be nervous about Taiwan.
We can be wrong as fast as anybody.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, China's never liked it that Taiwan's independent. You could see how they've slowly merged Hong Kong back into the Chinese sphere. I wonder how, I think Taiwan would be a lot more difficult politically. But
Ben Thompson's been doing a lot of good writing about this lately.
He lives in Taiwan. What does he think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things he did recently was he said we always frame our discussions about China from a Western point of view.
Right. I love that article. Yeah.
The Chinese point of view is very, very different.
This is his article which says we should ban TikTok. That's the conclusion.
But not let Facebook buy it.
Right.
That was like it was a double-edged sword there. Yeah. But yeah, that these are rhetorical. Like we tend to think that we'll send Beatles tapes and blue jeans to every country on earth, and that'll cause them to become westernized, where he's saying these are tools that they're using to achieve goals. Yeah. Their ideology is purposeful, and that's very different than the way that we implement it. And it's to our peril if we sort of conflate what we think is like a winning strategy with the actual game that they are playing.
We're playing two different games, really. And that's the problem. We brought a knife to a gunfight.
Yes. We also can't overlook the history of trade with China, where it's been foreign companies essentially trying to inflict misery upon China, its government, and its people for the benefit of foreign companies. And this is deeply, deeply ingrained in the history of the country that say, well, we're not going to let that happen again, are we?
It's soft power.
Not even China, the Han Nation, which is a small part of, I don't know how small it is still, but it's part of China, but it's not China, and that creates its own dynamics.
No, but I think China has been very adept at manipulating soft power, and they're using economics to do it, and they've been very effective. And you're right. We think, well, we'll just do the Voice of America and send them blue jeans, and they'll go, capitalism. It's a great thing.
And they've been very good at like blocking any form of Western influence, and also making it almost stigmatizing Western attempts to discuss how China should be doing things. But they have been fearless and like relentless in saying NBA don't do it, like in saying how they want Western companies to behave, and that has not been a two-way street for a long time.
No, but if you think about if you're Chinese in China, just like we're patriotic, look what happened with Huawei. As soon as Huawei got cut off from America, now they're not going to be able to buy chips from TSMC, but it didn't hurt their profits because in China they suddenly exploded because of
they don't need the Google Play Store in China either.
Yeah, but it didn't matter, right? Because they didn't care. The market didn't care, and it didn't hurt them at all in China. I have a feeling as I said, we're not geopolitical experts, but it is a complicated story, and I'm sure Tim Cook has some good people working on it.
Yeah, it gets more complicated, like especially with the way the government is treating Muslims. I mean, when you start to have like secret footage of Uyghur Muslims being blindfolded, kneeling, and being loaded onto trains, that becomes something where it's a very, very powerful stink that a company needs to address. They're not responsible for everything that happens inside that country, but if you're contributing that much to a certain economy, you can't claim that your hands are completely clean.
And it's been sort of like Tibet over the year. Like it's become a thing where like you can't talk about Tiananmen, you can't talk about Tibet, you can't talk about there's almost becoming like a purposeful desensitization to what you're allowed to talk to China about.
I'm so glad I'm not a diplomat.
Now.
It's a very complicated conversation.
And to be fair, I'm glad that I'm not a business person.
Yeah.
Where it's you don't really it's not as though you have a great many options, because if a country controls a certain resource that you absolutely need, it's not like you're just shaving 10 cents off of a $40 product by going with this supplier instead of this supplier. And you also realize that as a prime influencer in the economy, perhaps you do have the ability to say, to at least in the way that you do business with this country, to say, okay, well, here's how the factories that do business with us are going to run, and you're going to help us be able to run this factory and run this business the way that we want it to be run. We're going to make sure that people get paid correctly, people get breaks correctly, people have their rights honored, and hopefully have some sort of influence on that. But when it comes down to, do you want to be able to manufacture and sell consumer electronics, or do you not want to be able to do that until 2034 at the very earliest? You just gotta,
and not to be false equivalency guy, but also you get to a point where the minute that starts happening, people in America go, well, why don't you care about what's happening to native populations or indigenous populations here, or what's happening along the border? You know, they, again, not geopolitical geniuses by any measure, but there's enough inhumanity to go around.
I hope that one of the things that sticks from 2020 is the idea that corporations do have a responsibility for at least what happens within their own companies. That they can't control how workers are being treated in another nation. They can control the diversity of the people in their executive suites. They can control how they're treating their own workers. They can control their impact upon the countries that they're operating in, and that it's no longer a throw your hands up in the air. So, oh well, what can you do? Well, you can actually, as a group, say that
get that football team to change its name.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you know what? If just the other day, one of the board members of one of the most influential and prestigious opera grants, they have an opera competition every year for the greatest for basically upcoming talent, and it's a very, very prestigious award. And one of the son of the artist that the fund was actually named after decided to mouth off on Facebook about thugs and how the police should crack down. And within 2 days, all the star performers that were supporters and on their boards, and all of the people who were contributing, saying, "Okay, guess what? We are pulling our support 100% until you get this guy off of your board." And 24 hours later, he was off the board. It's nice to know that collectively people have a voice and that they can actually make things done. It's sad that the Washington football team only finally decides that perhaps we should do something about this filthy racist name when Federal Express says, "Hi, we control your destiny and we're not going to have it anymore." Yeah, exactly.
Actually, if we want to add another country to this, both Google and Facebook have just made massive investments into Jio, which is a Indian telephony company, and actually Reliance Jio is the parent company, and I think Google and Facebook both have 10% equity now in Reliance Jio. They are clearly seeing India. If we can't get into, and Google's had trouble getting into China, Facebook too. If we can't get into China, there's 1.1 billion people in India too. That's a very big market with fewer, political issues, certainly. What is Apple? I don't even know. I mean, Apple sells phones in India.
Yeah, they're working on producing them there so they can get them into retail outlets there. But I think it's a longer play than Apple originally anticipated.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's one of the reasons Google bought stake in Jio. They current Jio phones, inexpensive, very popular phones. I think they've sold 30 million in India. Run on something called KaiOS, which Google's an investor in, but it's kind of a medium, not smart, not dumb, kind of medium phone. And I think they would like to get Android Go on all of those phones, and I imagine that's one of the reasons.
Even like their business works on scale. Like Apple's works on profit scale, Google's works on deployment scale, and the more they can get any form of Google software on any phone or operating system, like they eyeballs are what matters to them. They're not precious or religious. Like they'd obviously like you to be using Android, but they've got Chrome browser on Windows and on Mac.
That's right. That's right.
They just want the user data.
Yeah, it's super significant that Sundar Pichai, is from that region. He understands the problems of technology in that region. That every single part of the you can't make one phone or one product and expect that it's going to solve the problems that are universal, because there are no universal problems. You can deploy a phone in one country that has built full digital telephony infrastructure within the last 15, 20 years from the ground up, where everything is like. Anybody in my office right now, I would be very, very happy to have the bandwidth that anybody in Tokyo has on their phone. Whereas in some places, the way that broadband is deployed, the way that it's metered, the way that it's charged for, this is why Google's Go apps were such a big deal. To say, not just to be able to run on less expensive hardware, but with the awareness that every single byte of data that's being transmitted is A, not necessarily reliable in all places, and B, very, very expensive. So we're going to do everything that these versions of these apps and this version of the operating system is going to do everything it can to communicate as little as possible with the outside world. But how they still manage to send as much tracking data as it does like off the desktop in the United States, I don't know. But that's the sort of thing.
They had BBM phones, remember? They were just almost zero data proxy BBM phones for a long time in Africa.
Just to put it in perspective, there are 1.1 billion mobile phone users in India, and there are 22 different, they call them telecom circles, with multiple carriers in each. Yep. It is a complex market.
Why dual SIM is so important.
That's right, because you can go across circles easily within a city. So this is clearly a market you'd love to have participate in with 1.1 billion users, but a very complicated market as well.
No, it's incredible. This is why you sometimes every now and then there's a story about the iPhone or another phone saying, "Hey, did you know that this phone actually has FM radio receiver hardware in it, but it's just not being activated by the operating system?" It's like, well, yes, that's because in certain parts of the world, one of the biggest to get the most efficient way to get news, and particularly like soccer scores and cricket scores, is through radio. And so that if you want to sell a phone in this market, it better be able to receive FM radio broadcasts. Yeah. That's how interesting these individualized markets are.
Do you think it's impossible for Apple to penetrate that market with certainly with any of its existing products? They're probably too expensive, and they're not capable enough, right? They don't have FM radios.
Yeah. It's going to be tough.
Korea, they have TV on their phones.
Yeah. Right.
I'm really convinced that Apple can do anything that it decides is an important thing for the company to do. And sometimes I use that as so then why aren't you putting Apple Watches in the hands of Android users? But it's also that if they really decided that they want to create a really good competitive market, or if they were in a part of the world where they don't think that the phones, if there were a part of the world in which they looked at what was available to users there and had say, gee, here's a problem that all of these people across a wide spectrum are having with their technology, here's something we could do to address that and create a great business for ourselves. I think they would absolutely have the ability to do that. Even if I'm not sure if they would ever go so far as to create a completely regionalized product. That's something that I would love to see them try to do. I would love to see them try to do just as a spectator, not as necessarily a shareholder, which I'm not. But it would be great to simply say we're not going to build a phone that could conceivably be shipped everywhere. We're going to create that weird kind of offshoot like animal where it has like a nose that's like a foot long and 8 inches wide, and it has 6 legs and it has vestigial wings, because in that one little island that was never discovered by rats or cats, but does have snakes and flying predators, this is the creature that can survive and thrive in that one environment. I would love to see Apple make a product like that is so focused on one region, we can get a good idea of exactly what their design principles and where the design chops actually are.
Let's take a little break. When we come back, we'll we'll find something else to talk about. I'm not really. There's a lot of rumors. I guess we could. I hate delving too deep into rumors, but what the heck? There's not going to be.
We can sort the reliable ones from the totally.
Okay, we'll do that.
Crazy ones.
The rumor scorecard coming up next. All I really care about is when can I get Apple Silicon on my desktop? I would like that MacBook or a new iMac.
See, I thought you were going to say when can you get espresso pouring out of your Lightning port? But it's good that we're taking this in stages.
I had never even thought of that.
You can have that right now. Just pour espresso into the keyboard.
The keyboard to come right out that Lightning port. Our show today brought to you by Roman. If you are suffering, guys, I know, we're taught to be stoic. We're taught to put up with it, to walk it off. Remember Little League? You get hit by a ball, it hurts like hell. No crying in baseball. Walk it off. Rub some dirt in it. It'll be better. And that, as we grow up, honestly, teaches us a bad habit, which is when we need help, we don't seek it. And the last thing most guys ever want to do is go to the doctor, especially if it's about a condition that's kind of embarrassing. You don't want to tell anybody, for instance, that you're suffering from erectile dysfunction. Bad enough that she knows what you don't want to tell some stranger. That's why Roman's here. For the last couple of years, Roman has been building this amazing digital platform that connects you with a doctor licensed in your state. And it's not just ED, not just sexual health, hair, skin, dandruff, eczema, supplements, daily health, prostate health, bone health. They've got stuff for guys that guys often are too ashamed to ask about. Help is here in a supportive environment that's not humiliating or embarrassing. Anybody who's dealt with erectile dysfunction knows how awkward it can be to talk about it in person. But this is the convenient, simple solution to get the treatment you need without leaving the couch. It's so convenient. Just grab your phone, grab your computer, complete a free online visit. You'll hear back from a U.S. licensed physician within 24 hours. And it's by the way, it's not a pro forma, oh yeah, okay, what do you need? I'll write a prescription. It's a real doctor who cares about your health, who will talk to you about your health and talk to you about your treatment. And that's kind of comes from Roman's DNA, because it was started by a father and son. The son, who's the founder, suffered from ED in his 20s, and fortunately, his father, it was a men's health doctor. He could talk to him. His father said, that's unusual at your age. We better get you a workup. They found out he had undiagnosed heart disease, had several surgeries. He's fine now, but that lesson taught him that it's important to talk to a doctor. He felt fortunate it could be his dad. Now you can get that same kind of advice. This is not a doctor who's just there, filling in some hours. This is a doctor who cares about you, who will help you find the right treatment. See all of the conditions: heart health, bone health, stress relief, prostate health, testosterone support. Actually, I'm taking their testosterone supplements. As you get older, that becomes an issue. I love them. You get free unlimited follow-ups with your doctor anytime you have questions or want to adjust your treatment plan. With Roman, there's no commitments. You can cancel at any time. Yes, they offer generics so you can save money. They're just great. I just think they're great. Roman is a source of wellness, giving men something that we, frankly, really need. Somebody to listen, somebody who'll talk with us, somebody who'll get us the help we need. There's no reason to suffer in silence. Go to GetRoman.com/MacBreak for your free online visit and free 2-day shipping. GetRoman.com/MacBreak. Free online visit, free 2-day shipping. I am so proud to be associated with Roman, because I think they're doing something very, very important, and I'm not embarrassed to say this is a good thing. This is what you need. GetRoman.com/MacBreak for free online visit and free 2-day shipping. Apple did say Apple Silicon will come this year. Am I mistaken?
A system. Yep. A system will come this year.
The rumors have been
singular. There was no S on it.
There was no S. So the rumors have been a 13-inch MacBook Pro and an iMac. Which one of the two do you think is most likely? I would say the laptop, right?
Yeah, that would be my guess. A total guess.
Especially because one of the big benefits of Apple Silicon is power per watt. And wouldn't it be cool if Apple could come out and say, hey, we got a laptop. It's great. It performs better than our existing 13-inch MacBook Pro. You get 32 gigs of RAM, whatever. And, oh, by the way, 20-hour battery life. Who wouldn't line
Lory
up?
Gill was very kind and let me do an epic rant on iMore about, because I saw a lot of people going, it's really just Mac on ARM. And I'm going, yeah, AMD is really just PC on x86. Because like when you look at what they did and you start breaking down, like especially that one slide where they showed, it wasn't the real SoC, but they kind of showed you what they were doing. And they're making a family of SoCs for the Mac. But like, I think ARM is great. It's like, I would think one day maybe Apple will release Swift architecture instruction set, but whatever. It's great, but it is only the instruction set of the CPU. And Apple is making the entire
It's like x86. It's not what...
Yes.
It's a compatibility thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's not like if you build a gaming machine, you might have an x86 CPU, but you've also got that monster NVIDIA card.
Right.
You've got all this, you got you got all this RAM. And the SoC is really all those things. And Apple takes it to like ludicrous extremes. If you remember the A13 unveil, they had like OLED display accelerators and H.265 accelerators and storage controllers and machine learning controllers that don't only dispatch between the neural engine, but between Apple accelerators on the machine learning cores and the CPU. Like the amount of custom silicon they're bringing there is way beyond just the ARM CPUs. It's like the ARM CPUs are a nice little bowl of chicken on the side of the buffet, but that entire table is going to be very full.
So Apple, and you point this out in your article, has an architecture license.
Yes,
that is
my understanding is it's beyond an architecture license. They have probably the most liberal license that you can get from ARM.
They basically have the right to say this is an ARM compatible chip, is what they're paying
Which
for.
doesn't mean anything because nobody else needs to, like, there's not like other people making Apple chips, so it's they can do what they want.
It's only meaningful, and Apple did make a point of this, if you wanted to run Linux on it, for instance, and there's Linux on ARM. I guess there's Windows on ARM, although Paul Thurrott says it's really more Windows on Qualcomm because it's so dependent on the Qualcomm chipset. I wonder if what Apple does will be incompatible with other ARM operating systems.
Well, I would argue that it goes beyond that it doesn't matter, because if they decide it's in their best interest to have Linux on ARM running, they can just make sure they have the right silicon for that. And because we've already seen that
you have a little part of the chip that's the Linux section.
They could do like they have a hypervisor accelerator in there just so that when you do virtual machines, you'll have much less of an overhead hit.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if every single thing that they want to be performant on those computers, because they're going to want to get like the best first impression ever, has specific silicon accelerating it beyond what any Cortex core ever did.
How important is it to Apple that Linux runs on Apple Silicon? Is it important at all?
A list of 1 to 100? Like
2? The only reason it's important is there is a segment of the population, sysadmins, developers, who need Linux. I mean, there's also a portion of the population that needs Windows, and they're kind of ignoring them. So maybe this isn't important. Maybe in fact, why do ARM at all? Why not just say, look, this is...
I don't think I do think one day if it's in their best... So I think Johnny Cerrugi explained it really well. They want to do absolutely everything they can to provide a differentiated experience, but trying to do everything would be arrogant, because there are ways that you will just faceplant if you try to reinvent something only for the sake of reinventing it. And I think they're going to move to ARM v9. I think that's my guess, because they haven't said anything, but ARM v9 comes out curiously around the same time that that Mac Silicon is supposed to come out. And there's a variety of other technologies that should be ready, like USB 4, and just a variety of next generation technologies that all line up really, really nicely with the Apple Silicon SoCs. That should give us really, I think, better performance in every vector than what we're anticipating.
So you make a really strong case in this article that compatibility with something else is not important. I mean, I guess what would they have to be? Where would they face plant? Devices, like you got to have printer support, or no, because that's all in software. Where would they be where would they care about compatibility? I don't honestly, now that I think about it, they did mention Linux, but what do they care? They have a Unix.
Audio.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
It's you.
I can hear you as well.
It's him. It's you. It's you, Rene.
Go ahead.
You fill in here.
While Well, again, getting that fixed. I don't think that Linux has to be a big deal for Macs going on to the future, because admins need it, but they would. I think that they would be okay with doing it as a virtual machine or VNCing into a remote machine. The people who are using Linux as a command line sort of thing, they don't want just simply compatibility. They want to be able to run a full bore Linux.
If you want Linux, you can get Linux easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a lot cheaper hardware too, by the way.
I'm wondering if their choice of the first computer isn't most constrained by what would be mechanically the easiest thing for us to retrofit at this juncture. Because if my outsider opinion is that if they were to pick one machine to be the debutante of this platform, it really should be the MacBook Nothing. Because Apple has some really, really super fast machines out there, so they're not really going to impress a lot of people by saying, "Here's how fast our new silicon is just as fast as our old fast machines." But if they can have, again, the super light, super transportable, like iPad-sized version of the Mac that, like you said, instead of having 8 to 11 hours of battery life, now gets 15 to 20 hours of battery life, not only will that be the absolute stellar banner thing to say, and here's something that is everybody can absolutely understand about the benefit of this shift to this new silicon. And not only that, but the people who are running that, they're not necessarily expecting supreme performance. They're expecting supreme convenience. And so the sort of apps that they're going to be using are probably going to be the sort of apps that are going to be the easiest to modify to take advantage of Apple Silicon, and also the ones that are going to be the first ones out. So I would be. It would be surprising to me if it were one of the Pro line machines, because those are the consumers that are going to say, okay, let's start off with these benchmark scores and let's see how long it takes for me to build this project. Obviously, Apple's going to have Xcode and Pro Tools and Final Cut running fine.
Isn't there a risk though? Don't you want to prove to pros that, because there is this misconception that ARM is low functionality as well as low power. Don't you want to prove to them, no, you know what? We can make a very good Pro machine. That's a pretty high priority. I would be thrilled if they made a MacBook and fixed the keyboard and then put it on Apple Silicon with 20-hour battery life. I'd be thrilled. But I think there is going to be pressure on Apple to stop the existing designs completely and have completely new designs with Apple Silicon. Lory, you sounded like you wanted a MacBook Nothing.
Yeah, well, I just think I agree that this is probably the first Mac that Apple will put on.
It's the easiest.
Silicon. Yeah, and just like Andy's saying, you're not going to impress people with having the MacBook Pro be a little more pro. You're going to impress people with having their bottom baseline Mac just skyrocket to a new level. Plus, pros aren't going to buy the first iteration of an Apple Silicon Mac. They're going to be scared of something like that. They're going to hold off. So you want to sell it to people who aren't as invested in whatever silicon is on a chip. They don't care. They just want a computer. This computer will work fine. They don't even know the difference between one chip or another. So it's the perfect computer for Apple to do this on, to impress us with what they've done and not scare people that have more demands of their software and their processors and things like that.
We got Rene back, right? Yeah. Yes. You think that's what it's going to be? I don't think it's going to be a MacBook Nothing. I really don't.
My guess is that they're going to smooth the transition. Like when they went from PowerPC to...
That's too smooth.
Yeah, when they went from PowerPC to Intel, they didn't change designs. Like even the Mac, like they just dropped the G4 name and changed it to the Mac Pro name, and it was the same cheese grater. I think part of that is they don't want to Osborne things too hard out the gate, because if it looks too far advanced,
that's a good point.
People aren't going to buy those Intel Macs, and they're still selling.
But are they just in timing?
Intel Mac.
Aren't they just in timing production? I mean, this is a very different time than 20 years ago.
But it's going to take like a year to 2 years to make the new Macs, and I don't think they're going to. I think yes, they want people to anticipate the new Apple Silicon Macs, but not so hard that no one buys a Mac in between now and.
If I'm Tim Cook, I want to make a clear demarcation between the old and the new. Let me just say, this is my sales pitch. You see if I can convince you guys. I'm a hardcore believer that Apple Silicon will be the best SoC ever made, that it will kick the butt, not only of Intel, but of Qualcomm and Exynos and every other ARM chip. I'm not going to use the word ARM because we're going to make something so good that people will go, this is what a computer is. It will leave the rest in the dust. I do not want to do legacy designs because I want it to be very clear when you walk into the coffee shop, oh, you have the new one. That's what you want. You also want to reassure pros, because really, frankly, who buys Macs anymore? Right? I mean, you want it's either luxury buyers, old timers like us, or pros who want the Unix shell underneath. You want to impress that most important market that, yes, Apple Silicon, you want to say this is the best computer you can buy.
So wouldn't the ultimate flex be making a 13-inch MacBook Pro that's even thinner than the current Intel version, that's cooler, that has much longer battery life, and maybe doesn't even have a fan?
Yes.
And you're like,
and no bezels now. And no bezels. You make it completely different. So it's important to be recognizably different when you walk into that coffee shop. It's completely different, and you reassure everybody by making the worst thing you could make right now is an interim device that's kind of like a Mac, but it's kind of like the Intel ones, but it's a little bit better. No, you don't want that. You want to make it
shock and awe.
You want shock and awe.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think anybody who has a MacBook Pro is wishing it were thinner. I think that would be visually, it would be a good marketing angle, but I don't think that will cause anybody to buy. Lack of fans, I think that's a big deal, but people who know the importance of fans know that. Well, look, if I've got if what are the chances that this silicon is going to have to throttle down because it's overheating?
That's why I said 13-inch. I stayed far away from the 16-inch.
That's right. But that's why I think. I mean, I think that Lory had a good point. That I think that most of the people who are investing in pro level equipment, they're going to be cautious because for them, if they make a mistake, that's going to cost them a lot of money. That's why
they may not buy it.
At least
they may not buy it. People like me will buy it.
Yeah.
No, that's right. You're right. Alex Lindsay, they're not selling it to Alex Lindsay, but they're going to sell it to me, and then Alex will say, "Oh, how's that run? Oh, it really runs well." And then Alex will buy the next thing.
Well, he'll buy both. We know that.
Well, Alex is a bad example for that reason. But the pros, I honestly, if you made, first of all, wasn't the MacBook a flop? Honestly, the MacBook nothing. Why did they make it once and never make it? I mean, they updated it.
Well, that's another thing that I'm thinking about. That it hasn't had a major redesign in a long time. They've been giving it incremental internal upgrades. But if, like Rene said, I think it was Rene.
If there were a market for it, they would be updating it.
Well, they never got Core M was a disaster. Like it was they could barely do
That's
anything.
right. They couldn't make it better because of Intel. Actually, that was the reason, and they were stuck with that crap keyboard. I don't know if you could make something that thin with a better keyboard. Yeah. So that's why I think dump the MacBook.
Okay.
Old.
I think also
get it. Make a perfect MacBook 13 that's almost as thin, that gets 20 hours of battery life, that's faster, better, no bezels.
We'll give you a 12-inch and a 14-inch. You can choose, Leo.
Yeah.
The other argument against what I'm saying is that Apple can be saying that people who really, really want the battery life and really, really want something thin and compact, we're going to try to steer them into a 10-inch 10-inch iPad Pro, particularly with the new keyboard that they've got with it.
That's a good point too. Yeah, you don't want to cannibalize that. Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to make that great argument against myself or someone else.
Which do you really want, Andy? Wouldn't you really want a perfect MacBook Pro 13 over a MacBook nothing?
Yes, if it were, but realize that a perfect MacBook Pro 13 would also have an SD card slot and would probably have a slightly better keyboard. But yeah, I think
it better have a better keyboard because I'm not. That's the MacBook was a non-starter for that reason.
My constant dream is for Apple to always have like a $949 MacBook of some kind, so that people who have a reasonable budget for a Windows notebook can talk themselves into, well, what if I find a little bit more money in the budget and buy something that will probably last a lot longer than the $600 or $700
what about this, Andy? Because the first MacBooks are going to be expensive because the initial outpouring of resources for Apple Silicon is going to be a super expensive bet. But if it goes like 2-3 years, what if they can start doing what they did with the iPad? And that's like the first MacBook is $1,000, but then 3 years from now they're like, and now we're introducing this new MacBook for education, and it's $500. That would, to me,
actually,
would just be like
that's an interesting. You raised an interesting point. I think Apple should absorb the R&D costs and not build that into the price yet. That's an interesting question.
I think they'll maintain price to pay it off, and then once it's paid down, they'll start doing what they've done with iPhones and an iPad.
But if you really wanted to get the world excited about a MacBook Pro 13, and you could get, with all of the benefits we just described, bezel-less, 20-hour battery life, it's thinner. It doesn't have to be as thin as a MacBook. 5G. Oh, and by the way, it starts at $949. Now there is savings in the long run in making your own silicon, right?
In the long run, but they're gonna, if they put the stuff into it that we all want them to. It's the same thing with like the Galaxy 20 Ultra and the OnePlus 8. It's like, we want you to add all this stuff, and then like, what did you do to the price? So it's like, if we get like the true depth camera for Face ID, it's a couple hundred, like it's like $100, and they add in like whatever it turns out to be to put Thunderbolt 4, USB 4 in, whatever it turns out to be to have the bezel-less design. Like it's just the bill. I think they're going to eat into that bill of goods pretty quickly, and the pricing will stay the same until they pay
Lory,
down.
can I sell you a MacBook 13 instead?
Yeah, because all of the things that you're talking about point to this possibility that Apple's going to bring back the MacBook, and they're going to make it ultra cheap. Because if the only thing they do, they keep the same chassis as the MacBook, and all they do is replace it with the Apple Silicon, they can drop the price of that. They can keep it low. They're not going to put it in their new camera. They're not going to put in a new keyboard. I'm sorry. They're going to keep it exactly the way, or maybe a new keyboard. I mean, because really people do not like the other keyboard.
Fingers crossed.
But they could do that, and they could drop the price of the new MacBook with Apple Silicon is now coming in at $899 or some like crazy cheap price that I think they could actually get away with. And just like you're saying, they would eat the cost of that research and development for that first computer, but also to Renee's point, when they start putting it, because we're talking about the first Mac, we're not talking about the rest of the lineup. And if they wow us and surprise us with something that is sort of just a step up, but it's cheap and it's fast, I think that's going to win a lot of people over. And what's the one big complaint that a lot of people have about access to Mac? It's the cost. And right now, I think we all understand that Apple has built a huge loyal following in a younger generation of people, millennials and Zoomers. I'm sorry to use those phrases to people who don't like having labels on their generation, but there's research done that they prefer Apple products over things that aren't Apple products. And so Apple won their hearts, but they can't afford it. They didn't win their wallets. So they might be able to get those kids who want an iPhone more than anything else to also get a Mac if they can keep that price down.
I'll just point out the iPhone 10 came before the iPhone 11. I think that's generally how they're going to roll.
Yeah. Well,
like the $1,000 phone came before the $600 phone.
Yeah, I guess my basic point is that I think that the first Mac to ship with Apple Silicon, for every one that they sell to people, there's going to be 1,000 people watching to see what happens to the people who buy them, so that will help people next year to buy the.
That's
one
why
that
you
they
make it the
actually
best you can be, and I think your analogy is excellent.
That's one point of view.
Yeah, that your analogy is excellent, Rene. What did they do with the iPhone 10? Because that was also a discontinuity in the iPhones, right? What if, and remember, I don't know if anybody remembers, but we were talking about the iPhone 10. We were talking about things like, what if you threw price out the window and you said, let's make the best phone we could make, and we'll make it our 10th anniversary iPhone. And that's kind of what they did. Now it's kind of obscured by the fact that all the successor phones have been equal or better. But at the time, that's what they did. I bet you this is more an iPhone 10 moment where they say, well, brand new.
One argument I would make against that is that we're talking about the prices of iPads going down. We're talking about the prices of iPhones going down. Those are both markets in which Apple felt a lot of price pressure, where the availability of really good $500 and $600 Android phones was really and particularly the way that Verizon and other co-marketers were able to sell them in retail stores was really telling Apple that we can't ignore this part of the middle market. The reason why there is a $299 iPad for education was because Apple was getting its lunch money stolen by Chromebooks and other machines that were both less expensive and more appropriate for education. I don't believe that there's the same sort of competition for Macs because they really are a product in and of themselves. And if anything, we have seen that if Apple is given the choice between your $1,800 MacBook year after year after year, version after version after version, is always an $1,800 MacBook, but it just becomes more powerful, more advanced features. They don't seem to be interested in finding a way to make that $1,800 MacBook for $1,400 or $1,500.
They have a MacBook Air for that. That seems to be like they have their price. And like people get confused by this, but it's not like Apple goes to the parts store, picks a bunch of parts, and then says, "What can we charge for this?" They're like, "We need a computer that'll eventually come in at $1,000. What can we build within that pricing model to attain that?" But I think there will be. I think just like exactly to both your points. I think just like we saw with the iPhone and the iPad, Apple uses the highest end to be able to fund their technological dream experiments, and then to sort of make that up to the market and to maintain average selling price. They then, like 1 year later, 2 years later, start trickling that technology down the line until you have a $329 iPad and a $499 and a $399 iPhone and a $199 Apple Watch. And I'm hoping that that's sort of the model they follow with the MacBooks over time.
That's what you do with a mature product. That's when you start chiseling away at the edges of that market.
But isn't the Mac a mature product in to some degree, and especially if we're talking about a non-redesigned Mac? Isn't that kind of what we're looking at right here? And I don't know. I keep thinking like this is a really great opportunity for Apple to do something like this. What you're saying, Leo, the fastest, best, completely redesigned, zero bezel, completely different architecture. That's a dream. That's something we want because it sounds beautiful and wonderful. But I think this is an opportunity for Apple to really make waves by selling a Mac that is not just under $1,000, but like quite a bit under $1,000.
But doesn't that cannibalize the iPad?
I've kind of always thought of them as two different things, but I'm not in the majority on that. So, but does Apple care about cannibalizing its own products? Because
they do if it's the iPad. They want the iPad to succeed.
I don't know. I think they want to cannibalize each other. But my thing is, I think they're going to want to, and this is a horrible thing to say, but I think it's true of most companies. It's why like an Android phone comes out at $1,000, isn't on sale for $600 2 months later, is that they want to extract as much money as possible from their best customers up front, because we're willing to pay anything to get the latest and greatest the minute it's announced. And then it really quickly goes down to market equilibrium after that.
And I have to be fair, Lory, you did bust me because I'm just describing the machine I want. And coming up with reasons Apple should make it.
Yeah, I get that. I want that too. Like actually the first Mac that I want to be on Apple Silicon is an iMac with a completely new redesign with the iPad design language and way smaller bezel. That's what I want. But I probably won't see that until late 2021 or maybe 2022. That's just the reality of the situation with that one.
That's very true. I'm hoping that it'll be a Mac Mini, because that's the design of Mac that I really have a use for in this office, and the one that I was probably going to be buying at the end of this year had they not announced Apple Silicon this year.
I can pretty much promise
in my video I used
it will not be a Mac
Steve
Mini.
Jobs.
Andy, go ahead, Rene.
In my video I used that old 2010 footage of Steve Jobs picking up the black Apple TV. And he picks up and goes, look how tiny it is. It's so tiny. And I'm just thinking, what Apple could do with Apple Silicon, the Mac Mini. Yeah. So it's like a Mac Nano.
Apple TV sized one.
Yeah. Oh, an Apple TV sized Mac Mini. Now you got me.
But I've been saying that for a while, that if Apple were able to create a Mac Mini style with Mac, even if they were to say that there's the only limitation on this is that you're limited to apps from the Mac App Store, things where Apple can absolutely control what it can and can't run on, and they were able to price it competitively so that it would be a good your kid's first computer doesn't have to be a secondhand Windows machine. It can be a brand new $499 or $349 Mac, even though if all it has is a couple of USB-C ports and an Ethernet port for
Can you imagine
connectivity.
Mac Stadium with like 8 of those per square foot?
Yeah.
What if, so Karsten has a thought. This is kind of like a liger or a camelope. What if you build a MacBook Pro that when you detach the screen turns into an iPad?
That's a very Samsung idea.
Yeah,
meaning it's not bad, but it's not Apple's idea of elegance.
I just think of all the problems Windows,
That's
Microsoft had with their Surface Book, where you could detach the screen and then it didn't work and all sorts of stuff.
But that's what the iPad with the Magic Keyboard is right now. So it's kind of
honestly.
I think that's the extent of what we're going to see with that kind of thing is what Apple's already done with the iPad Pro and the Magic Keyboard.
The Magic Keyboard has changed my perception of the iPad and where it sits in that lineup, because it is a computer now with a trackpad and the Magic Keyboard. Yeah. That's a great computer. So I buy into the notion now, Lory, that Apple's filled that niche.
Mm.
Yeah, no, that's a very credible. Again, I've always been honking on about Apple needs more entry-level machines and affordable machines on the iPad. Even the $329 iPad that's available for everybody, that's a very credible choice. That is not a cut-rate machine by any risk. If someone had $500 or $600 to spend for a Windows notebook or a Windows tablet, I would definitely put that in the decision tree for them and say that if that's your budget for a low-cost machine, this is one of the greatest values that's out there. And to be honest,
it's actually not that low cost. I wish they would bring the price, because you're spending $1,400 by the time you get the keyboard.
I'm sorry, that's the Mac. That's the Mac Pro. I'm talking about the 300, the entry level iPad.
But if you're going to get the one with the trackpad and the keyboard, it's going to be $1,400. It's actually more expensive than the low end MacBooks.
But from what you're talking about, that my idea of a dream machine that I know Apple will never make is literally take an iPad 12.9-inch iPad Pro form factor, do nothing in it but add whatever silicon you need in order to give it all the drivers and address lines you need to run Mac software, and then give me sort of like a modern version of the PowerBook Duo, where I have it in the Magic Keyboard when I'm out using it as a notebook. When I'm on the sofa just browsing, I can use it sort of more like a tablet, just browsing and stuff. And when I'm at my desktop, I can put it into a desktop dock, use that screen as a display, but also have like 2 HDMI displays and all my peripherals connected to it. That would be I would be such a sucker for that product that I wouldn't even wait to see if it actually works.
This is actually a good conversation. I forget the rumors. The best rumors are the ones we're making up right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's and again, that shows off some of the brilliance of this move. We can talk about all the reasons why Intel was letting them down, and this is the best way forward for them to maintain their independence over their product line and their product schedule. But the greatest thing about it is that it opens up so many possibilities. This time last year, when this was just a rumor that you may or may not choose to believe, there was such a limited amount of products that Apple could possibly make. And there is still a good reason for some people to wonder if Apple wasn't trying to just find time to turn the Mac into a developer platform to write iOS apps with. And now it's like I feel as though the Mac has gotten at least another 10 years at least on life, because I'm actually more excited about what Macs could be coming up in the next 10 years than I am about what new iPhones and iPads could be coming up. I'm very grateful. I think
that's Tim Cook's thing. It's like he's so plain spoken, and it's the same thing Steve Jobs said. Like, we want to. It's not faster Macs. It's not like better battery life, although we assume those things will be true. But it's better Macs. We have ideas for Macs we want to make, and we just can't make them using Intel's roadmap. So we're going to use Apple Silicon. Yeah. And the last time when Steve Jobs said that, we ended up with the MacBook Air that defined a generation of Ultrabooks. So I'm super interested to see what they come up with this time.
I just hope I'm not disappointed now, because my hopes are.
Oh, you will be. They'll be like the first couple to disappoint you, and then like it'll come out and they'll go, "Oh, this is what they should have put out the first time."
My hopes are so high for what we're gonna get, and I'm just afraid that it's gonna be something boring. And
what about a Mac Pro that has an Apple Silicon massively multi-parallel core in it, but that instead of like traditional expansion core cards, you have things like the ASICs that you can reprogram for Logic or Final Cut, and things like the storage module that can take large amounts of RAM or large amounts of SSD chips. And it's
that'll just make me cry more.
That's why they invented
because I won't be able to afford it.
Yeah.
I'll want it really bad. It'll be like the Lisa, which all I did was press my nose against the glass day after day after day, wishing I could afford one.
My father's office had one. Oh. So beautiful. And then I just dragged everything to the trash, and I was never allowed to touch it again.
Really? How old were you? 12? 20?
I don't know, 10 or something.
Okay.
No, that was it.
That's really sad. So you actually got to play with it.
Yeah, and I did. Like, it was just so much. I thought it was a game. It's like, oh look, I can drag all this stuff to the trash can. They're like, ah.
Am I going to be disappointed, Andy?
Well, if you're expecting RGB internal lighting, which I think that any of us could hope for in a pro level machine, yes. Well, I'll see, but yeah, I think that we're all going to be disappointed because it could be we're all with good reason speculating about everything that could happen. When I'm sure that Apple's biggest nightmare is that there is a spectacular piece of news. I think on their chalkboard of desired results, high on the list is that we continue to sell Macs as usual to the same people, but they're all just much, much better, and our customers are much happier with it. That would be
so disappointing.
Yeah, but that means I think in 3 or 4 years,
trying to hit a single when you should hit a home run. What, Lory?
In 3 or 4, go ahead.
Will you buy it no matter what?
Of course, that's a given. Unless it's $10,000. I mean,
well, yeah.
If it's in
price, obviously.
Yeah, I would love a Mac Pro, but I'm not going to buy a Mac Pro. I just, you know what? If they made a Mac Mini, I'd buy it. If they made a MacBook, if they didn't fix the keyboard, I guess it'd be amazing to have a super powerful computer in that form factor. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people who are like Alex Lindsay, who have like these massive iMac Pros and Mac Pros and all these things at their studio, and they just want to get on a plane and not have to carry anything. And if they could have a computer that actually accelerates the apps that they use, like accelerates Final Cut or all these things, and it's that small and it's fanless, and they're only using it in between at the coffee shop between the drive, those things. That's hugely appealing to pros who have their pro machines but want compatible machines for in between.
Yeah, that's Apple's biggest challenge as a desktop hardware maker, because it really is kind of gauche to dismiss any user's needs by saying, oh, well, you've got a niche need for a machine. Well, a market is filled with lots of people who expect that for a couple $1,000s, up to $32,000, they will get a machine that is exactly what they need for a certain purpose. And all they care about is their own personal needs because they're the ones spending the money. And whereas on Windows, there are multiple manufacturers that are addressing any need. And if you can't find anything that addresses what you want, you can just simply build your own and keep upgrading it as you go. Apple has the really, really tough job of they have to build every single Mac for every single Mac user. They're going to disappoint a whole bunch of users every time they make a change or introduce something new. All they can hope for is that whatever change they inflict upon these people, it's not going to drive them to another operating system. You're already ordering, aren't you?
No, I'm just going to try to tamp down my expectations.
Better to be surprised than disappointed.
See, that's another reason why I personally like the idea of them doing like a low end Mac first, because it would be a huge win if they say that here's our budget for a Mac, our least expensive Mac, and then just simply not say anything about pro apps for it, and then suddenly at iMore and all these other sites say, oh my God, we ran Final Cut, we were editing 4K video easily with this budget level thing, and let's compare that to when it was running on an M3 processor, in which we were getting basically 2 frames per second, like what we were getting on an Apple IIe 30 years ago. Whereas if they started off with here's our pro editing machine, and they were able to say, oh well, I see where you dropped 1 frame per 80,000 here. I don't know about that.
Oh, okay, just go with me for a second. What if Tim Cook comes out and he goes, good morning. Today Apple reinvents the Xserve.
Well, but there is a big opportunity.
Our
actually,
fans are twice as loud.
I could see Apple going back into the server market. There's an opportunity there. I mean, they probably won't, but.
What could they do with that? What could they bring? What magic could they bring?
The magic is, and I think there's already a market trend towards ARM in server land, because the problem with servers is power and heat. And Apple making
they don't want to make the software for it.
I know.
They just want to have the energy to make the software for it.
I agree. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But honestly,
it's exhausting.
With their silicon, they could make very fast servers that are low power and low heat.
Whatever Apple makes, they'll figure out a way to rack mount them and lease them to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's such a competitive market with so many really successful as entrenched market leaders in there. It wouldn't be worth the effort. But that's the same thing that we could have said in 2005, saying, "Oh, I don't know why Apple wants to compete with BlackBerry."
Google makes their own, I think, already, right? Like I think Google's making all their own ARM server chips today for themselves.
Yeah, eventually, I think ARM is going to own everything, but we shall watch.
We're going to see some cool stuff, I think, in 5 years. The really bizarre stuff worth seeing in 5 years. They have to make sure that they get they get everybody supplied with eggs, milk, bread, and toilet paper. Once everybody has the necessities in the Mac line, then they can start going freestyle.
Yeah, but in 5 years they might be doing quantum. I mean, this is what's interesting about Apple Silicon. It's not tied to ARM. As you point out, Rene, I think that's a very astute point. They're going to mention ARM now because compatibility is an issue. But over time, it's Apple. It's not ARM. It's Apple. Apple sees a new technology come down the pike in 5 years. It's still Apple Silicon. It could be photonic.
I think there is a chance we'll see a WWDC where they announce a Swift-based architecture.
I love that idea. I really like that idea.
Because when they announced it, they said we built this to make operating systems all the way up to client apps. Yeah. And they haven't shown us any of the operating system stuff yet.
Yeah. Put Swift in the microcode.
Yeah.
A couple of new, what do they call these? Made with Mac ads, or Apple has a name for them. This is in the series that Apple does.
This isn't work from home, though, so you don't have to worry.
No, I'm going to skip that one. This one is Tyler Mitchell, who is a black photographer working at a Bed-Stuy. And I think these are so well made. They're just fun to watch. This is the guy who shot the Vogue cover, which got a lot of attention. And it's really cool how he takes this loft in Bed-Stuy and turns it into a studio. It's freaking awesome. So that's worth watching. Black and white. Beautifully done. And then if you're more into music than you are photography, Oak Felder in the studio.
Yeah, I love Oak Felder. He's so good.
That's actually an older one. There was a newer one I wanted to show. Where is it? Let me go back to the list. The Oak Felder's cool. That came out in March, but there's one that just came out 3 days ago. James Blake creates a new song also from his home. So that's kind of cool. You can watch him using Logic Pro. And a real piano.
A hallway.
Yeah. I didn't know they made pianos out of wood. Did you know that? So
it's an old timey-wimey.
The conceit behind both of these is that they just set up cameras. It's kind of a reality show vibe in their house and watch them as they worked. I also like it's black and white, which is kind of fun.
Yep.
Couple of new videos from Apple. Now time for your picks of the week. Lory Gill, let's start with you this week.
I might end up having you spend some money this week.
Oh, crap. All right.
I was going to pick this, but Lory beat me to it.
Oh, I want to know how to get this. You just said the right word for me.
Yeah.
We were talking about this on iOS today. Oh, my God. This looks interesting.
It's the Folio Touch for the iPad Pro. So this is a touchpad keyboard by Logitech for the iPad Pro. They have a model for iPad and iPad Air. This is the first time they've done it for the iPad Pro with the touchpad. And I cannot explain what a joy it is to use a touchpad with an iPad. And if you can't afford Apple's very expensive one, this is another one for the books. And I have actually, Logitech is my favorite keyboard iPad keyboard company. I think they make an excellent keyboard. I love the way it feels, the tactile feedback, the bounce. I love it. The curve of the keys, how far apart they are, the travel. I've loved Logitech's keyboards for a long time. So now that they have one with a touchpad, a touchpad for the iPad Pro, you can spend a lot less money and get a really fantastic experience.
Almost half as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot less expensive.
It does use the smart connector, so you don't need. It's not Bluetooth. It's not a battery powered. These are rare. There are not a lot of keyboards.
It looks very surfacey.
Yeah, it also has an infinite kickstand. It looks like. Is that right?
Is it infinite? So I don't have it because it's not available yet.
Oh, but you
I'm
always
not
get this
sure.
stuff before anybody else does. In fact, when we were talking about this on iOS today, Micah and I said, let's ask Lory if she can get us on the list. It's fabric. I love that. Mm-hmm. Oh, I want this badly. Yeah. So available for pre-order. Did they say when?
Let me see. They don't actually say
Here's
when.
Here's one other thing that bugs me. It doesn't say what size iPad Pro.
Have you tried when you click on pre-order it? I think it gives you the option.
No, it was the 11, wasn't it?
Is it only the 11?
It's the 11?
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, it's only for the 11-inch. I should have known that already. I apologize.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
I know. I had the same reaction.
Well, Micah,
not me because I've got the right size.
Yeah, Micah has 11.
Well, you're always smarter. You're always a step ahead.
And it has
they always eventually
shortcut row, which Apple does not.
Right.
Just give me a paper
it's
cut
one of
and
those little
things on it, Leo.
The difference is it doesn't float the screen as Apple does.
Yeah. And as much as I like the floating screen, I do find a little bit of lap imbalance. Though I can tell, here's the thing: the kickstand for that particular model, if you're actually using the keys, I betcha that kickstand is not going to be very stable. The keyboard, Logitech's keyboard for iPad Pro, I can't remember what model number it is or model name it is. It has a kickstand that's the same way. Don't love it on a lap. It's not a very good experience on a lap. So I think that there's just nobody wants to make a keyboard that's stable on a lap.
Yeah. You and Mary Jo Foley both seem to type in your laps a lot. I don't understand that, but.
Yeah, well, if I'm going to sit at a desk, I'm going to use my computer.
Oh, I get it. That makes sense, actually.
Yeah. If I'm just casual and sitting around on my couch, I grab my iPad. It works really great as a computer. I'm sitting it on my lap. When I start typing, I get a little jiggle.
Scooter X says you can order it now at the Apple Store, and they'll get it in 3 days. So,
are you sure that's the right one?
Is that right? Well, Scooter is rarely wrong.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to check it out right now while you're talking about the next people's pick.
Yeah, because boy, that would be. I'm so sad. I wanted it for my 12.
Well, now you have to buy an 11-inch iPad Pro. That's how you fix that.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Oh. Rene Ritchie, your pick of the week. Thanks for spending my money.
So, I was going to pick Lory's, and since she picked that so well, I decided to go the complete opposite way and pick a free silly app.
Okay.
Like, if you remember long ago, there was Auto-Tune by T-Pain.
Yes.
And now it's back with a vengeance. And I included the link to the video there because there's no way I can do it justice.
Let's play
but
some.
it's basically a voice distorter for the iPhone. And it takes you and transforms you into what I'm sure will eventually be a very in-app purchase filled licensing experience of different celebrity voices.
Oh, and T-Pain's involved.
Yeah.
So it's more than Auto-Tune. It's
well, there's
VoiceMod.
Darth Vader and there's.
Oh, can we get it now? Should I download it and try it?
Yeah, it's downloadable. Sure.
Well, why
I was watching iOS today just on the off chance that you and Micah were going to spend 37 hours doing it before the show started. But I was lucky in that you hadn't seen it yet.
We blew it. Oh man.
What's it called?
VoiceMod.
It's called VoiceMod.
VoiceMod. Yeah. It just came out
now with
earlier
iOS
this morning.
14. I can't find anything on my phone.
I've always used Spotlight. But there's a recents folder. If you download it recently, it'll be in that folder.
Yeah, no, it's
I'll
not.
see if I can get them.
I'm just trying to find it in the App Store. VoiceMod clips, voice changer.
I think it's VoiceMod clips.
Is it?
Yeah, the YouTube video says VoiceMod clips.
Oh yeah, there's T-Pain's face. Yeah, VoiceMod clips, voice changer, and it is free. But obviously, if you really want to do anything fun, you're gonna have to spend thousands of dollars. Many hours of your time. All right, well, I'm downloading it to play with it. Thank you for a great tip. Oh, wait a minute. It's already downloaded.
There you go. It has a bit of an annoying onboarding procedure.
Oh, you could do video or audio. Create new audio. Allow microphone access. Okay. Headsets work best. Okay. Now, what are my choices? Oh, I get 11 randomly selected voices, and I get 3 hours and 27 minutes to the next set. So,
yeah,
got it. So, Clean, Cop Chase, Speechifier, Dark Angel, Fear, Wawa, Storyteller Action, Exo, Android, Alien, or Second Life, or Game Over. Which one? Which one do you say?
Second Life? I don't know.
Game Over, man. Let me do Game Over.
Game Over.
Okay, now what do I do? Apply. Now I press. It's time to get back to work because MacBreak is over. No, it's not, though. That's just for the purposes of the...
Don't stop. Don't press stop.
I press stop. Now what? Next. Save and share over. Okay. Who's... Do you like my voice, mate? How do I play it back?
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Who's doing that?
Me, I'm just holding up to the microphone and pressing the buttons.
I can't.
I loved you on The Masked Singer, by the way.
I don't know what this is. So, Andy, your pick of the week.
Oh, mine is a really, really good one. The Sandman was Neil Gaiman's master opus, one of the greatest fantasy series in comics history, and it's just been adapted into an 11-hour, 20-episode audiobook on Audible.
Is it the whole thing?
It is. It's the first 3 collected editions. Okay. So 20 episodes, and Neil Gaiman is the voice of the narrator. And let me tell you what they did. They didn't just farm this out to say, okay, someone type in like a novelization and we'll just have one person read it. It was Neil Gaiman handed over the scripts, his original comic book scripts, to this director who had been one of his previous credits was the reboot of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And so in the original scripts that he wrote like back in the 80s, obviously he has to describe to the artist what everything looks like and what the moods are like. Dream enters a palace. It's made out of million high long spires made out of bones and chocolate cakes. And so all of that stuff is put into the audiobook from the narrator. Now it's creating these pictures in your mind. It really is like a radio drama series. It isn't just again somebody reading a text. They really did all the atmospherics, a huge cast, including James McAvoy is Morpheus, Michael Sheen is Lucifer, Andy Serkis is Matthew the Raven, Josie Lawrence as Mad Hetty, who's sort of like who's a immortal but a street person, Joanna Lumley as Lady Johanna Constantine. So it's a huge, rich tapestry. It was one of those things where I know that it's a digital download, but I felt the need to like go to my comic book shop and like camp out there so I could buy it at midnight, like in front of a comic book shop.
How are they selling it, on DVDs, on CDs?
No, it's Audible.
Cassettes?
It's Audible. Go to audible.com.
Yeah, but why did you go to the comic book store?
I'm joking. Saying it's such an exciting
idiot.
thing.
I believed you.
I'm sorry. I was being my usually amusing and confusing
I actually bought the fancy, leather-bound Sandman.
Yeah.
Which I love. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
I got the Absolute ones. They're so good.
Yeah, I got the Absolute. Yeah.
I have those too, and I have to say that I would almost recommend it alongside the comic book version. Obviously, the comic book edition, the original comic book edition, is going to be, the canonical version, but nothing can really replace the visions that you have in your head, particularly with Neil Gaiman, who is such a good audiobook narrator.
Yes.
But also he's an amazing anytime you have Neil Gaiman narrating his own stuff, it increases the power by 2 or 3 times because he's a terrific actor. And as the author, he knows the intent of every line and every passage. And so it's $35 if you want to buy it outright. If you become a member of Audible, you can get that for free and then buy a couple of, you get a 30-day trial, which means that if you can either buy it for, I'm saying you can either buy it for like $35 or you can basically be a member for 2 months, get 2 free books along the way, plus, and then cancel it make sure you set a reminder to cancel it. But even if you just want to not try to, scam Audible out of additional books, for $35, it's one of the best pieces of entertainment I've bought in a long time. I
get my credits tomorrow. I'm so excited.
We gotta wait one more day.
Yeah, one more day. But thank you, because it's only one credit, which is nice. Because this
11 hours.
Yeah. Oh,
and once again, it is broken up into chapters, just like it's the first 3 books, which means like the first arc is like 6 issues or 6 episodes, but then they're individual episodes that are individual like standalone comics. So it's not as though you're in for this 11-hour long haul. It's sort of like getting like 5 or 6 or 7 titles, because I usually break up audiobooks into what home project do I have to do, and what do I want to listen to. So you get the one project that will be good for cleaning my kitchen from top to bottom, but then like the one issue, sort of one episode that's good enough for just vacuuming the living room. I get highest possible recommendation. It is just an amazing thing.
It's volumes 1 through 3. Yeah, it's Preludes and Nocturnes, The Doll's House, and Dream Country. It gets Dream Country too.
Oh, nice.
But they're going to do more.
Dream of 1,000 Cats.
So they're going to get through, I presume, do it all, which is even more.
What did he say to you, daughter? True things. So good.
And Baby Newworth is the Siamese cat in Dream of 1,000 Cats.
Oh, this is amazing.
All right, I'm going to buy it 8 times. Keep buying it.
It really is. That's the highest compliment I can give, is like when I listen to it and I've already bought it, but it's like it's like you want to like say, I wish I could just throw money into a box and mail it to you, because I feel as though I didn't pay enough for this. It is just.
So are we happy or sad they didn't get Tom Ellis from Lucifer to play Lucifer? It's probably 2 different characters.
They got Michael Sheen, who's pretty damn good. That's pretty good.
You're doing okay.
Yeah. Wow. This, I cannot wait. Thank you. In fact, let's just end the show now so I can start.
Yes, I was thinking.
Everybody really wants to run off and download this. Thank you, Andy Ihnatko. You can catch him on WGBH in Boston when?
This Friday, tune into WGBH 89.7 on the terrestrial airwaves on Friday, I think at 11:30 this week, or go to WGBHnews.org either live or later on to stream it.
Lory Gill, she's the big kahuna at. Are you on the phone already? You're telling another writer to buzz off? Your deadline is
taking the role of delirium. She's demanding a recap.
She can't hear us anymore.
I had to switch my headphones really quickly. I just lost audio, just like Rene did.
Same thing. Thank you, Skype.
I got it though. I got it.
I thought you were firing another writer. She's managing editor. No, she doesn't do that. At iMore.
I was the last one.
.com. You were she didn't fire you. She gave you the keys and said, drive off into
out of the
sunset.
nest and said, fly.
Thank you, Lory. Great to have you. We missed you last week.
Before I go, I just want to say, was it Scooter?
Scooter X.
Scooter X was right. You can actually order it from Apple now, and you can have it delivered as early as 2 days from now if you pay the extra, or 3 days from now if you just do the regular shipping. So
we'll
you can get it right now.
We'll expect a review next week, Lory. Can't wait. Thank you, Lory Gill. Thank you, Rene Ritchie, now a YouTube celeb at youtube.com/Rene Ritchie. At Rene Ritchie on the Twitter. He's RR. Look for the RR. Anything exciting in your universe you want to tell people about?
I just did a trilogy on what Apple Silicon means, what kind of Macs we can expect to see from it, and also why you might still want to get an Intel Mac. So I did those 3 videos over the weekend.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. Join us live if you want. We do stream the audio and video of us making the show at twit.tv/live. You can also catch it on demand. I think that's how most people listen, by either going to the website twit.tv/mbw. We're on YouTube, of course. We have a YouTube channel, and best thing to do would be get a podcatcher of your choice. And Overcast, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, Slacker, Apple Podcast, Google Pod, whatever it is that you like, and subscribe. That way you'll get it the minute it's available of a Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And now,
get back to work, because break time is over. Want more TWiT? Well, you gotta check out iOS Today. It's the show where Leo Laporte and I talk about everything to do with iOS, iPadOS, tvOS, watchOS. It's all the devices, all the best apps, games, and services, everything in between, plus a whole lot of laughter. twit.tv/iOS for iOS Today.